some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Yippee.
Two, hello.
You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Check 2. Some of that white clam. That would be a good Canadian version. Imagine if Canada, instead of white claw, we had white clams. Just imagine. I don't know, if I didn't have anything to do, I would think about it. At noon on a Tuesday. Slamming back a ice cold claw. Left flank vets, thanks for the raid. I appreciate that. Marcus, what is up? How is the raid? How is the stream? Oh fuck, I'm off to a bad start already. I'm off to a bad start already. How was the stream? I hope it was good. I appreciate the raid, Marcus. I need more claw. That's right. I'm not sharp here. I'm not looking too sharp. Sasha, thanks for 9 months of tier 1. I appreciate that, Sasha. Thank you. That's a stream baby. Stream baby. 9 months. Thank you, Sasha. And thanks, Red Wizard, as well for 28 months. Tier 1. Thank you, Red Wizard. Hello, everyone. I don't think we talk enough about Sheryl Crow, honestly. I don't think we talk enough about Sheryl Crow. Sheryl Crow is just about as good as anyone as a singer-songwriter. I challenge anyone to dispute that. I need Sheryl Crow for my white clam commercials. Well, that's something. If it's slamming a white clam at 12 makes you happy, then it can't be that bad. Excuse me. U.S. Air Force trying to recruit me through a Canadian commie stream. Now is the absolute worst time. Like, not only should you not sign up for the Air Force, you know, last year or 2 years ago or 5 years ago, you extra don't want to sign up for the Air Force right now, let me tell you. The first claw is the steepest. That's good. That's nice. You big time don't want to join the Air Force right now. You want to get clapped off the coast of Yemen? Or over Tehran? You want to get shot down over Tehran? Don't worry, I'm sure you're going to be treated very nicely in that situation. I'm sure that's going to go great for anyone that gets shot down over Tehran in the coming mass slaughter that we seem to be heading towards. If your plane can even take off successfully, which is not a guarantee. We should see what Subaru's marketing team charges. We could hire them to produce propaganda for the Institute. Why Subaru? Is there something specific about Subaru that would make that make sense? Get shot down, become a senator, have an insufferable daughter, the American dream, and along the way, marry a super rich lady who's like a condiment heiress. You gotta have that as well. That's your reward for getting out of the Hotel Hanoi. Hotel Hanoi, I should say. Beer heiress, okay. Sorry, it was John Kerry is the condiment guy. He married a condiment heiress. They're all marrying different heiresses, these guys. He's the ketchup guy. Yeah. That's it. That's your reward. You do a little stay in Hotel Hanoi or Hotel Tehran or whatever. Walk out, marry some kind of heiress for some kind of food product. The Hanoi Hilton, that's right. And then you become a senator and you have a fucking dipshit loser daughter. The monster heiress. That would be really great for me. I think that would be a good thing for me. That would be a good career move for me. Does Monster have an heiress? I gotta look into that. I'm sure you covered it while I was overseas, but how is the Rousseau Institute Summit? Where can I access any related content? Well, I'm going to release it as a episode of the 49th Parahell podcast, but it has been released already. One version of it has been released by the Harbinger Media Network on the Harbinger Society Presents show. And you can listen to it here. And honestly, it went very well. I was really happy with it. It was a little bit like, not a huge amount of preparation. It was a little nerve-wracking. A little improv going on, but not that kind of improv. But it went really well. And if you want to listen to it, you can listen to it there, or you can wait until I release a version on my podcast, which I will do this week. Yes, and that's right. It was one of those shows. I'm pivoting. I'm making a career pivot. I'm becoming a improv guy. How's my mic sounding, by the way, as well? It was. I realized yesterday that it was turned up like way too loud. All these people were complaining. I was like, "Shut the fuck up! I control how it sounds." And then later on, I was like, "Ooh, that was very loud." That was very loud. Hopefully better. Just joined. When is UGOPNIC rating? I don't know. Hopefully later. By the way, if you came in over the raid, if the algorithm brought you here, if you just saw a little picture of me and you clicked it on the Twitch homepage and you ended up on the stream and you wonder what's going on, I mean, I gotta say, I'm at 9,994 followers here on Twitch. 6 followers away, folks. 6 followers away from 10K. So if you just tuned in for the first time and you want to really help me out, simply click the little follow button, And you don't have to ever think about me again. You can just go on with your life. I encourage you to come back. I would prefer if you came back. I'd prefer if you joined the community. But in theory, you could just click the follow button and just move on with your life, and you would never have to think about it again, and it would really help me out. The thing about Fetterman's wife is amazing. I don't know if anyone follows Zarina on Twitter. She's kind of a friend of mine, and I really appreciate. She goes very hard on Twitter, and I always appreciate her. And she commented on when there was that tweet that showed that he was like waving the Israeli flag. No, like let's look at this. He's like waving the Israeli flag at protesters, like on top of a building. And she was just like, this is not the actions of a person who has a stable family situation or something along that. And then like shortly afterwards, she's Fetterman's wife has like taken down all her social media stuff. You hate to see it. Listen, I don't really like to make fun of other people's relationship problems, marital problems. That's their business, you know? When it's this man, though, I don't really feel that bad about it, I gotta say. I do try to avoid that for whatever reason. We don't need to get into why. I try to avoid that, but with Fetterman, I can't say I feel a whole lot of sympathy for John Fetterman, enthusiastic genocide supporter. John Fetterman. So here's the tweet that started it from January 26th. John Fetterman spent the night standing on a rooftop waving an Israeli flag at protesters in Pennsylvania. Just an unbelievable sight to see. And then Zarina says, his wife absolutely left him. This man is having a breakdown. This was January 26th at 10:27 p.m. And then, like, it starts coming out. She's deleting all her social media. One of the most divorced actions one can take. Again, I try to avoid bringing up people's personal issues, their relationship problems, you know? I don't feel super bad for this man. Enthusiastic genocide supporter who's also pivoted over to being like the anti-immigrant guy as well. He's pretty much just like gone against every sort of progressive value that he at one point professed to have. He might have some decent ideas or views when it comes to like unionization or certain like social issues. I don't know, but like has really pivoted to this like really extreme reactionary direction. Who doesn't have a large flag of another country at home? Not even that, but he decorated his office. He decorated his office with like the Israel kidnapped flags or posters. It's not even just having an Israel flag and waving it around at anyone when they correctly accuse you of supporting genocide. Wallpapered his office with kidnapped posters. Like that's seriously, that's not a mentally stable person. And anyway, once again, shout out to Zarina for calling this. January 26th. We got to give Zarina her flowers there. She fucking nailed that. And disrespectful to those people. I mean, it's his constituents that are like protesting him. It's his own constituents. And he's like mocking them. Here's the link. But if you want the link, I'm putting two Zarina tweets here, but credit to her. I like Zarina. She goes very hard. She does not hold back on there. Can we watch Tom McDonald's new music video with Ben Shapiro? I'm going to say no. I don't even want to watch that just to make fun of it. I just don't want to know that exists, you know? I don't care. I don't want to give Ben Shapiro the whatever humiliation fetish that he has. He wants people to like look at his rap that he's doing in this and bringing up all the hypocrisy. Oh, you said it wasn't music and blah blah blah. I think it's just funny because I saw that we don't need to look at the edgy lyrics right out of 2016. Like this is just, it's so boring, which is so funny because these guys, these reactionary guys, think they're. By the way, isn't Tom McDonald? Yeah, he's fucking Canadian. Like, I'm sorry. I know maybe it might be ironic for me to say that. Okay? The thing is, I don't hide being Canadian. It says in my bio, Montreal. I've never I've never not pretended I was not Canadian. I talk about Canada often. I talk about what's happening in Canada. I talk about Justin Trudeau. I never pretended to be American. Yeah, I got deeply invested in like stuff that's going on in America, the Bernie Sanders campaign, that kind of stuff. I never ever pretended not to be Canadian. This guy has like, this is new information now, and this is all, he's all in the whole like Biden cabal, QAnon kind of stuff. And it's just embarrassing. Doing this song with Ben Shapiro. But I find it funny too because he wears this like hoodie in the video. I didn't look at the video because I was just like, no, I'm not going to look at that. But I saw like a promo pic or whatever of the two of them, and he's got this hoodie that's like, I don't care if you're offended. I don't care if you're offended. Oh, that's interesting too that he was a big COVID masking and social distancing guy, and now he's tried to pivot. Now he's pivoting to try and appeal to like that entire crowd of people that I guess would see him as being like a big pharma shill or whatever, globalist. But this whole thing of like these conservative guys, I don't care if you're offended. These guys get more offended than anybody. These guys get offended at the tiniest little thing. Think of all the people that got offended by me when I said that I would rather my daughter married a member of MS-13 than a member of the Republican Party. So many of these motherfuckers were so offended. They were so offended by this. These people, no one gets more offended than these people. These people get more, these guys get so fucking offended by like teens wanting to go by they them pronouns. They like feel this is like a personal attack on me. Nothing. These people are the most constantly offended, pathetic, whiny crybabies in the entire world. And it's hilarious that they accuse others of that exact thing, which is like, it's just insane to me. No one is more of constantly offended, whiny crybabies than these people. He's simultaneously a mask and distancing guy and a COVID denier and anti-vaxxer. He also claims to be pro-trans and LGBTQ. He's just too dumb to have cognitive dissonance. Okay. Yeah, it's not even like an Orwellian thing. He's just stupid. Like that's just, and then, ironically, that's probably a description of most average people's political beliefs. Just totally incoherent. Just completely nonsensical. And then they call themselves the silent majority. These whiny assholes are all you hear. I wish they would be a lot more silent. I wish they could be a lot more silent. I think that would be nice, actually. Taylor Swift is an opt to make us woke. I mean, it's hilarious, all the conspiracy theories about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce and the vaccines and like wokeness and Biden and all that stuff. It's so funny. And like you can point to like calls in that game, that Baltimore game, like bad calls, but like there's bad calls or non-calls in every single sports game, right? If you want to talk about sports being rigged, it probably has a lot more to do with gambling than like Taylor Swift and Joe Biden and Pfizer or anything like that. But like also the Chiefs are just fucking really good. Like you don't need to find a conspiracy. Like the refs can't make Travis Kelce catch 10 out of 10 throws for 100 yards in like the first half of that game or whatever it was. Like that's not the refs. You can't fake that, you know? Like, and they're just good like that. They were the beneficiary of some bad calls for sure, but like they're also just really good. It's not the refs that are causing Patrick Mahomes to not ever throw an interception in any significant playoff game, you know? Travis Kelce is just about to pass Jerry Rice. He's passed Jerry Rice for all-time playoff receptions. He's probably going to pass him before his career's over in all-time playoff touchdowns. Like, that's not a conspiracy. It's just like an elite level, all-time level quarterback and an elite, all-time elite receiver, tight end, connecting together on this team that has this dominant run. You know, I get that it's annoying. I get that it's frustrating when the same thing happens every single year. You know? I understand. I wanted the Bills to beat the Chiefs, frankly. But, like, what are you going to do? Like, they're just good. They're just a good football team. HTA, I thought she couldn't make it to the Super Bowl, though, because she's at a show in Japan. So there's all kinds of, like, controversy about whether she's even going to be able to be there. Yeah, plus Baltimore decided not to run the ball the entire game. Like, that's not the refs. She can make it. Someone did the math. I'm sure the Swifties are on top of this. She's rich. She can do whatever she wants. I'm going to test out some kind of new genome transporter. Cinnamon Challenge. I'm sorry. You know that I have subversive political opinions. I'm also a normie. Okay, I'm a normie at heart, and I try to appeal to other normies as well. I like doing. I have a little 20-minute, 30-minute block in my show where I can do a little sports radio talk. You know. I like that. In another life, I could just be a sports guy. I could just be like a totally normie sports guy. You know, if with a few different decisions in my life, I could be back living in Brockville, Ontario, and just focusing on sports with like 85% of my mental capacity. You know? A few key moments in my life brought me down this path. It really does sound kind of delightful, actually. If I could just not know about any of this stuff, and I could just focus on this stuff all the time, that must be nice, you know? It must be nice. Sports journalism drove me to be a leftist and hate sports journalism. I mean, I have a real appreciation for, like, sports pundits. You know, even the ones that I hate, I like them because the ones that I hate are really good at their jobs. Because making you hate them, they're heels. You know, it's just they just cut heel promos. Sports punditry is fascinating, you know? It's true. Skip Bayless is a genius, and he's so annoying, but he's really great at what he does. You know, and it's funny, like sports analysis and sports punditry, because all you need to do is just make bold predictions, and even when you're proven totally wrong, you just don't you know, it just washes off your back and you move on to the next thing. You should want to skip trying to throw in his Cowboys gear in the automatic garbage can, keep sabotaging him. That was very funny. That was very funny. I'm sure next year he's going to be right back there again. You know full well he's going to be getting all that Cowboys gear again. In 6 months, the Conservatives went from using the football player dating the cheerleader homecoming queen as a meme to represent traditional values to thinking Kelsey and Swift are doing ritualistic devil worship on national TV. That's the thing. They can't even get with, like, they can't even fucking appreciate anything. You know? There, you've got your, like, kind of vanilla celeb couple of, like, the sports jock and the harmless pop star. Okay, you should be happy with that. Well, and also the whole thing of, like, Kelsey and the vaccine, because he's like still not physically in any problems and is doing well and is at the peak of his career still, while Aaron Rodgers just instantly tears his fucking his hamstring in the first play of the first game of the season. Looking forward to seeing Taylor at the DNC convention. I did read the stuff, Cinnamon Challenge, about how they're trying to get the Taylor Swift endorsement. And I don't know. I feel like that might tear our fabrics of society apart, you know, because the conservatives are going to be mad about that.
In Canada,
there's going to be Swifties that are mad. There's going to be pro-Palestine Swifties that are mad about it. Lucid, hello. Thanks for the raid. Thank you, Lucid. Folks, I hope the Lucid stream was good today. Folks, I'm at 9,996 followers. I'm 4 followers away from 10K. So if you're not following this channel, one thing that you could do right now, it costs you nothing at all, and would be very, very helpful to me, is if you just press the little follow button. Oh, it's happening. This is happening. It's so close. It says 10K on the site, Lucid, but right now I'm reading 9,000. Hey, 10K. And congratulations to brand new follower Chillbat. You are lucky number 10K. You're the 10,000th follower. Chillbat. Is that all that sound is? Wow. Wonderful. Tell them what they've won. You've won this exclusive TRRS. Rob has officially drank out of this can of Diet Coke. If you send in your mailing address, P.O. Box, along with your social security number and your credit card number, and you need the little code at the back of the credit card as well. Make sure you include that. I will send you this can. I will send you this used can. This from TRRS. This is an official Rob can of Diet Coke. I'll sign it, and if you provide that information to me, I will send that along. Official game-worn Diet Coke. Exactly. Diet Coke, very Trumpist. I don't care. I'll keep drinking that garbage. God, I wish that were me. You can resell that on eBay for big money. in the secondary market for official Rob items. You can make a killing with that kind of thing. Don't be upset when your DNA turns up on a gun. I totally did not use to murder anyone. That's so specific. You had that right in the chamber, talking about guns. A little alarmed about that kind of comment. Seems like you were thinking about that. You're just waiting for an opportunity to strike. I'll just settle for my Stanley Cups. It is so funny that the Stanley Cups have lead in them. That's fantastic. What's your t-shirt? Is it some sort of Joy Division Steely Dan mashup? That's exactly what it is.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
That's exactly what it is. Kijiji, thanks so much for the gifted sub. Thank you, Kijiji. I appreciate it. Kijiji also in close number 2 in gifted subs this month. They do? Yes, they do. Yes. The Stanley Cups that have been driving America crazy have lead in them. We only took the lead out of our drinking cups and other items because of wokeness. Like, let's call it what it is. Let's call it what it is. We took the lead out because of wokeness, and it's time to bring it back. Put it back in the gas. Put it back in the gasoline. Put it back in the paint. This shit improved the brains of an entire generation of boomer politicians. Look at these people are thriving. Look at all these people. They're absolutely thriving. We got to bring that back. Bring back the asbestos too while we're at it. We used to be a proper country. The people who drank lead all have houses and pensions. Exactly. Is that a coincidence or what? They're actually boomers that want to put it back in paint so they can paint their house and block signals. Yeah. How else are you going to block the 4K the 4G or the 5G COVID signal with the vaccine? How else are you going to block that? Yeah, with leaded paint, asshole. So I'm like, you can't tell because I'm kind of jittery because I slammed this Diet Coke and I'm thinking about having another one. And in fact, I think I'm going to have another one. Just to be clear, it's only if you break the steel coating with a hammer, there's some lead under there from the manufacturing. It's more likely that the people testing it just have lead in their drinking water. But I think it's also important to point out that other similar cups don't have lead in them, even if you do hit it with the hammer. A friend of my sister-in-law started sleeping in the middle of her living room to avoid the 5G rays. Hell yeah. I genuinely love how insane everyone is becoming. I think that's fucking great. And look, we're doing that without any help from lead. Without any help from lead poisoning. You know, people are going insane and melting their brains just with totally natural. Au naturel brain melting. So yeah, I'm tired though, folks, because I had one of those nights last night where, like, do you know when you go to sleep early and you're like, I'm going to go to bed early, I'm going to be rested, and then you sleep really badly, so you have no benefit. You have no benefit at all. You don't benefit from going to bed early. You have no night to speak of. All the things that you might do, you sleep through it, and then you have a bad sleep anyways. That was me, but I had cool dreams. I had a fucking fucked up dream, and I woke up at like 2. First of all, what is with dreaming? Okay? I'm anti-dreaming. Why are you showing me this? What is this? What are we looking at here? This is my time. I'm supposed to be relaxing. What is this? Why am I looking at this? Just fucking leave me alone. Okay, I have enough stuff going on in real life. I don't need this bullshit. And part of it is because I'm watching the new season of True Detective, which I kind of like. You know, it feels a little bit shoehorned. It seems like almost like a different story that's kind of shoehorned retroactively into the True Detective kind of like aesthetic. But I'm still watching it, and it's like, it's not great, but there's some things in it that I like. There's some really disturbing imagery, and that's the thing. I watched the new episode last night, and then fell asleep shortly after, and then I had fucked up dreams about weird shit happening coming out of the Arctic ice. It was like The Thing type situation. And I had this fucked up dream that some weird, Lund's sitting up. But that was disturbing. That was very disturbing. I had this fucked up dream about some alien parasite coming out of ice and going onto my body and latching onto my body and going into my nervous system. And I never remember my dreams, but I woke up and I was like, "Gah, what the fuck?" That was not a dream. Oh God, it's like in the Matrix. True Detective is a different story every season, which is one of the reasons it's not as good as it could have been. Yeah, I think part of that, I mean, even though there is some like Easter eggs this season to link it to the first season, there's a few things, if you're kind of paying attention, to like link it to the story of the first season. They just really captured such magic and sort of lightning in a bottle with that first season. Red Wizard, you don't think I'm smoking weed? You don't think I'm smoking weed before bed? Oh, I'm smoking weed, all right. That's why normally I never remember. I never remember my dreams. They captured such lightning in a bottle with the whole like McConaughey Harrelson dynamic, and I liked the dynamic that they've never really done again in another season of True Detective, which I enjoyed. You know, I'm a season 2 apologist, but they had that dynamic of the present and the flashback, and you see Rust Cole, and he's got the long hair, and he's all gaunt, and the mustache, and he's all like fucked up looking, and he's blasting cigs and drinking beers and talking all kinds of this weird philosophical mumbo jumbo, and then you have a whole backstory to be like, how did this happen? How did he become like this? You know, that was an interesting kind of dynamic to that story, which they haven't really tried to replicate in these new seasons. That said, I think this new season is all right, but it made me have a really fucked up dream about shape-shifting, body-snatching creatures coming out of the Arctic ice. No, same with me, Barbara. That's why I'm a little confused. I've been dreaming a lot more lately, and I'm not totally sure why. Anyway, I guess maybe so then I was up all night. I was up until like 6 a.m. Because then I was awake, and then I started scrolling in that moment when it's like, I should not pick up my phone right now. I should absolutely not start scrolling my phone right now. But it's like, maybe I'll just have a little peek. You know that feeling when you wake up in the night? Maybe I'll just have a little peek. And then it's like 6 hours later, and you're like, That was a big mistake. I guess in retrospect, I did have like melatonin. I probably should have just taken that. Samsung gives me stats of how much I'm on my phone. I don't like it. I don't want to see any of that. I don't want to know any of that information. Honestly, I don't want to know anything about that. Get that information fucking out of my face. That's what I would say. I don't want to know anything about that. Why shouldn't I read the entire Wikipedia for the history of the B-52s? That's right. Anyway, so I was just like super messed up this morning because then I finally got back to sleep at like 6 a.m., something like that. And woke up at 7:30 to bring my kid to school. So I'm flying high right now, and in fact, I'm gonna have another Diet Coke. I need a little bit more caffeine to get through the rest of the day. Like I think we're just gonna kind of keep on having some of the same discussions we were having yesterday. That's kind of my plan for the stream today. I kind of want to continue talking about this, like the looming possibility of a widening regional conflict / World War III. Try to find some clips we can look at about that. It's a crazy time. It's a crazy time right now. Okay, one sec. I love that Biden thinks a war will save his candidacy. Gen Z is so against any escalation. They're already at like 27% approval. We're going to get into this in a minute because I want to talk about the position that they've put themselves here. You ever drink Coke Classic? No, I don't. I mean, maybe sometimes, very, very rarely, but I never purchase it. It is kind of a nice little treat sometimes. If you have like a salty meal, you have a sugary, full sugar Coke, after. Here's a question for the chat. Before we move on to serious discussion, serious discourse. Here's a question for the chat. If you did a thought experiment about how badly his 4 years could go to make sure that Trump would win, it would be pretty close to this. Yeah, it would be close. I think there's a few things, like I have my prediction for the Biden administration, like when they started, like on camera, and it's like I got some things right. They did better at the midterms than I was expecting because young people showed up for them, and fucking good luck trying to replicate that again. So, folks, I got a question for you. Before we get into any serious discourse here, do you think that I should chug this entire can of Diet Coke? Just a simple yes or no. Do you think I should chug this entire can? See, I see some people are trying to take my health and put my health and keep my health in mind here and are saying no. But I think, honestly, I think I had already made up my mind about this when I asked the question, frankly. I think I had already made up my mind about this subject before I even asked the question. I was kind of just hoping you could give me sort of permission. Chin chin. Okay. Okay, now we're ready to go here. Now we're ready to go. Now I think I'm ready to get going here. Just got 40 health points. That's right. It instantly heated up my body. I don't know if I'm just like being bashful by chugging a Diet Coke in front of an audience of 229 people. Maybe it's like the whatever is going on in the beverage that's doing that. It instantly made me kind of flushed, though. That's how you know it's working. If this is a zombie video game, you'd be healed up. That's right. Absolutely. I think the only funnier thing that could have happened there is because I have like a glass desk here. If I'd slammed the glass down and broke the desk, I think that would have been ultimately the funniest thing. Marxism trending on Twitter. Well, I'm sure there's some great discourse going on around that. I already ate my lunch, by the way. I didn't. Yesterday I had a really good sandwich, and I made pretty much the same sandwich, but what was the name of the mortadella? I made a mortadella sandwich with 2 different kinds of cheese and pickles, which I on a brioche bun that I ate yesterday. And today I was just too hungry before the stream started, so I ate it before I started. But I had the exact same sandwich with some onion and with a leftover chicken thigh as well. So it was brioche bun, mortadella, chicken thigh, Havarti, American cheese, pickle, onion, mayo, mustard. Really good sandwich. It was really, really good. Absolutely, Nikki. I'm a big chicken thigh proponent. You eat so well. I admire it so much. Thank you, Nikki. It's definitely one thing over the last couple of months that I've focused on a lot. Making nice meals. Making nice sandwiches and nice meals. Because some people reminded me yesterday I need to start posting some of my meals in the Discord server as well, so I'm going to start doing that. I used to cook everything for an ex and myself, and since then, I stopped caring about preparing nice meals for myself at home. I mean, that's valid too. That's totally valid too. For me, it's like a big self-care thing, honestly. It's a big self-care thing. You take the time to like focus on something. It's kind of artistic in a way too. You take some time to focus on something. You kind of make something nice. Like I was saying on Saturday, I made this really nice meal and I sat down to watch The Holdovers. I went and picked up a bottle of Pinot Noir. I sat down, I was all by myself. I had my super nice meal and my glass of Pinot Noir, watching my movie. I was like, this is nice. It was honestly very nice. It was a very nice evening. I really liked Holdovers. It doesn't try to reinvent the wheel. It's a fairly standard kind of coming-of-age story. Some really, really nice performances by the 3 main leads. It's entertaining. It's funny. I like Alexander Payne, and especially the Paul Giamatti collaboration. I talked a little bit about it yesterday. But I like him telling these stories about these like different kind of middle-aged men in various stages of like crisis. And you know, again, it's not doing anything too spectacular or crazy, but it's just like it's well written. The movie looks great, nice performances. I really liked it. It's a really good Christmas movie too. I think I regretted a little not watching it over Christmas because it's a very good Christmas movie. So yeah, I liked it. I would definitely recommend it. Middle-aged crises feels a little too close. Well, it could be a little too on the nose for me sometimes, but I managed to make it through these. I managed to make it through. And Giamatti is just excellent. Don't remember the name of the other actors. Dominique Sessa, I had never seen him in anything. Young guy, he's really great in the movie. And Davine Joy Randolph is the other lead. She's really great as well. You know what? It's set in 1970-71, and I don't know. St. Lotus, that's how you pronounce it, okay? I pronounced it correctly. You're pronouncing it like a boorish American. Dominique Sessa's first movie, wow. He's great in it. He crushed it. Oh shit, where was I going with that? I got interrupted. They might be gone. I don't remember what I was saying. I don't remember. Hey, McGooms, how's it going? Welcome back. I hope we got some repeat viewers. We got some new friends and new followers last night. I hope we got some new folks coming in. Pinot. Well, I don't know why I was saying it like that. Pinot sounds boorish to me. Ooh, Pinot. No thanks. I think you're all saying it wrong. What else was I going to say about this fucking movie? I forgot. I liked the kid's performance. Oh yeah, okay, thank you. I remember what I was going to say. Well, I'm thanking myself. No thanks to you. So, I don't know, because I was a little high and I was drinking my wine. So maybe it's my own issue here. I didn't realize this movie was set in the 70s until like way later in the film. And I don't know if that was an intentional thing, like, oh, it's kind of like timeless. I was like, oh, is it like the Bush era? Is it, you know, I didn't really know. And I didn't know if that was intentional or if I was just like a little bit tipsy and a little bit fucked up. And I just totally missed all the 70s references until the end of the movie when it's New Year's and they show the New Year's 1971. And I was like, oh. I'm pretty sure they explicitly say this in the beginning of the movie, and I just didn't see it. I did see The Boy and the Heron, yeah, and I quite enjoyed it. Pretty sure there was like a year displayed during the credits. Good. And I'm pretty sure in retrospect they mentioned the Vietnam at the very beginning. So so maybe that's on me. Maybe that one's on me. My powers of observation. But I guess that's the thing. It's like a kind of a timeless story. You don't even need to know what time period it is. Okay, we don't need to continue making fun of me for missing this obvious part of the movie, okay? Tipsy Rob must be very entertaining. Well, that's why people showed up to the New Year's stream, because that was definitely a Tipsy Rob experience for the ages. It was all sweaty and shit. Singing Bob Seger. Anyway, I guess, is that enough chit chat going into an hour here? I guess it's about time to get into the serious discourse for the day. We're moving out of the chit chat zone. I will encourage people to please subscribe if you can. That's why I tried to start like at a normal time today to make sure I have enough time. I'm really hoping to, no pressure on anyone in the community, of course. I'm really hoping to meet my targets this week to kind of get back on track. So if you can, please subscribe to TRRS. It is $5 a month. Get all the tiny little images, join the community, support the work that I do on here. If you've got an Amazon Prime account, you can subscribe totally free of charge, which really helps me out. Tips also very much appreciated. Bits, whatever way that you can support this show. If you can, please do. I appreciate it a lot. It's the only way that I'm able to keep doing this show every single day, is if people subscribe to the program and help me make the little number at the bottom of the screen down there go up every single day. So if you can, please support this program. Please subscribe, and we become friends. If you do, we become friends. That's the deal. That's the fundamental kind of social contract that comes along with supporting this program. Remember when I chugged that Diet Coke? That was pretty cool. Oh, the new Insurgents pod just dropped. That's good. Thanks for letting me know. I'm going to make sure I repost that. And it was a good one as well. We talked with Josie Reisman about this, the whole Vince McMahon situation. Did you watch the Royal Rumble? How did your punk boy CM Punk did? I think he did a fantastic job. He did 40 minutes in the Rumble despite suffering a debilitating injury, which would have had me crying and wheezing and whining. Suffered a debilitating injury, unfortunately. Still managed to do 40 minutes in the Rumble. I guess that's why we all were kind of speculating about what was going on at the end. It felt kind of like thrown together at the end and anticlimactic because he had suffered this terrible injury. I just think it sucks. I don't know. I don't think we should be making fun. Even if you don't like certain people, I get it. Maybe we don't need to mock people for having debilitating injuries. I'm a little salty about it. I just feel bad for him. I was excited to see him back. He is just getting up there in the years. It's getting harder for him to do this shit, but I think it's pretty impressive that he finished the Royal Rumble 40 minutes and suffered this like serious injury. In the process. No, it was real. You can see like he takes a Future Shock DDT from Drew McIntyre and immediately rolls right to the corner and starts talking to the referees, and he ripped his tricep off the bone. Yeah, he needs to get on the gas. He needs to get some HGH. We got the stuff that they were giving Cena all those years. I'll tell you what, though, I fucking loved Drew McIntyre's promo last night. When Drew McIntyre cut that promo like on Punk when he's in his sling, his arm's all fucked, and he's not going to be able to be at WrestleMania this year. And Drew McIntyre cut an amazing promo on him. And he's probably going to be in that spot now, which I think is good. Drew McIntyre deserves to be there. So I'm actually I'm happy for him. And his promo on CM Punk was fucking scathing. Anyway, it's a little disappointing, or a lot disappointing. I was hoping to see him at WrestleMania. I mean, I will say it's funny that they did this whole like, I'll finally live my dream of main eventing WrestleMania thing with CM Punk, but like, in WrestleMania 28, which was The Rock was Cena, which I guess was the main event, he still did defend the WWE title against Chris Jericho at that WrestleMania. Like, it's pretty close to being a main event. He wrestled The Undertaker at one WrestleMania. It's like pretty good. This whole idea that he's kind of been perpetuating that he never got to. I mean, there is merit to it, but it's also like, he did have multiple years of being high on the card in the main show of the year. Anyway, let's not fixate on this. Best of luck to Punk in his recovery. I hope to see him back. So they just have to improv if an injury fucks up the script. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, sometimes if they can get away with it, the person will just leave. But there are certain situations where like they have a certain plan that they've got to adhere to, and they've just got to figure shit out. Like there's been some disastrous injuries in wrestling matches through the years, and they've just got to figure something out on the fly. Why did I have to get a work call before I could watch Rob chug the Diet Coke? Well, perhaps someone clipped it. Perhaps someone clipped the chugging. And they should rebrand as being one of these chug guys. The internet is thirsting for chug content. Maybe I should just start pivoting to that. Hang on, I'm just going to post this. Imagine going to work and the new strategic plan is pivoting to chug. You got the PowerPoint deck out with all the numbers, the social impressions, the social blade impressions of all the chug content. Okay, hang on one sec. I'm just going to post this podcast episode. One second, talk amongst yourselves. Still time to subscribe to the program, by the way. If anyone feels like doing that. I know a bunch of people rushed to immediately subscribe at the last call to action, which I appreciate a lot. Thank you for that. But there is still time to subscribe and support this program if you want to. They're caught in the pipes right now. I know it happens. It happens. Okay, good. Good. Blogger Rob Rousseau is posting to microblogging service. Twitter.com. Many of our dial-up internet users are trying to subscribe right now. We've got all the dial-up users trying to subscribe and their fucking moms are on the phone. Unbelievable. Mom! Get off the phone. Get off the phone. I'm trying to watch this. I'm trying to watch my stories. Okay, so where do we start here? I don't even know where to start. I have a bunch of stuff. There's a lot. Mom, hang up. So let's go back to talking about UNRWA. Okay, I think that's a good place to start. And I'm sure all these subs and donations are going to come in any moment now. Mom is still downloading the King's Quest Game Fact Guide. King's Quest was cool. And so, yeah, this is the Wall Street Journal piece we talked about yesterday. Intelligence reveals details of UN agency staff's links to October 7th attack. Around 10% of Palestinian aid agencies' 12,000 staff in Gaza have links to militants, according to Intelligence Dossier. And in the bottom text, it says a coalition of Palestinian militant groups led by Hamas posted videos of their annual military training to social media for years. The exercises looked nearly identical to the tactics Hamas used in its attack on October 7th.
Good old Rob to talk you through all this.
I don't know what that has to do with UNRWA. Baldwin, thank you very much for the 4 gifted subs. Thank you, Baldwin. That's very, very kind of you. Thank you. So this is the intelligence. So this is just like Israeli intelligence just passing along this information, which is being repeated totally uncritically in American media, like the Wall Street Journal, to justify cutting off funding for UNRWA, which is a like vital organization and a vital organization providing humanitarian aid in Gaza. We talked about yesterday, like, whoa, oh my gosh, the idea that some people that might be connected to UNRWA might be connected to Hamas. Like, the surprising thing would be if that were not true. Again, Hamas is like the elected government in Gaza, or was elected years ago. There hasn't been an election in years. They control like civil services in Gaza. So the idea that there would just be no links between people, it's one of the largest employers in Gaza, the people that work for this agency. And who are these people? 10%, according to this intelligence report. You know, how are they involved? Well, we don't know exactly. Did they just celebrate this? Did they? Well, we don't know. Like we were saying yesterday, like no matter what you can say about whatever happened on October 7th and the possible links with UNRWA, what the IDF has done since then is far more barbaric and murderous and violent against civilians. It's committed far more terrorism than Hamas or anyone else could ever hope to. So the idea that like UNRWA is getting defunded or funding is getting paused because of this like tenuous link, which is only being, the accusations are coming from Israeli intelligence, being the information has been attained by like interrogations. Who knows what the fuck that means? But yeah, I mean, like, we're still funding the IDF despite their terrorism. Like, if 10% of even like, let's saying this is true, if 10% of an organization's members engaging in criminality means funding should be cut, like maybe we should take a look at like police departments around the country. Let's look at the criminality let's look at the criminality not just of police departments, but just the IDF specifically. Just over the last 4 months, it's been way more than 10% of people in Israel and the IDF that have been supporting full-on genocide. Yeah, defund the RCMP. I've been supporting genocide, ethnic cleansing, bragging about engaging in destroying people's homes, doing TikTok dances to war crimes. Of like, should we defund them? Maybe, I don't know. Like this, it's just unbelievable. And like we were saying, the cynicism and the depravity of cutting off funding to UNRWA on the same day that the ICJ rules that the genocide allegations against Israel are credible and ordered them to cease the violence. The very same day, this shady intelligence report gets revealed. And like, who's revealing this information? Again, like we know that's just coming from the IDF, but it's coming from specifically an author from the Wall Street Journal, Carrie Keller Lynn, who wrote this article, who not only got this information from the IDF, but was in the IDF herself. And I think that's one of the amazing things too about our like journalism and how it works, and like being biased, and when this accusation of bias comes in and when it doesn't. Again, if you're a member of DSA, for example, and you're going to be a journalist and you're going to talk about certain things, people are going to talk about your links to DSA as a way to, or any kind of left-wing organization, Black Lives Matter, the Sunrise Movement, any kind of nominally left-wing kind of values. If you've ever gone to a protest, an anti-war protest, if you've ever engaged in anything like that, and that's part of your record, that's going to be used to like dismiss you from your opinions, dismiss you from the marketplace of ideas, invalidate whatever journalism you're going to do. But if you literally are a member of the IDF and you go back and not only like write articles like this, but as the case in like The Atlantic, you go and fucking become the editor of like a main liberal sort of magazine that talks about these issues. This is just not, it's just totally ignored. Who cares? Who cares? If you speak out against journalists being murdered, you're a biased journalist. Yeah, exactly. Eliza Landis and Carrie Keller Lynn, co-hosts of Israel from Right to Left podcast. How did you first meet? Carrie, I went to serve in the military in 2009. I was living in a kibbutz. It was a big change and I was a bit lonely, and Eliza helped turn that around. What a lovely story. I was at another question. I was at Stanford, where the BDS movement was very present. I was in law school there first and helping lead the on-campus fight against some active BDS resolutions. probably doing so working directly with the Israeli embassy, like we saw a number of these pro-Israeli activists on campuses. Someone from the IDF lived in Israel and then becomes a pro-Israel campus activist. Oh, I'm sure that's totally independent. I'm sure that's just a totally independent decision that she made. And these are the people then that are go and write pieces in the Wall Street Journal that manufacture consent for cutting the funding for a vital Palestinian humanitarian aid organization based on these claims being like uncritically repeated from Israeli intelligence. Like, that's not a conflict of interest. That's not a bias we shouldn't be talking about. Yeah, we've got the IDF storming hospitals and assassinating people in their hospital beds. Yeah, refugee agency people are the bad guys here. Oh, don't worry, those guys were planning on doing more terrorism. Like, dressing as a civilian and going into a hospital and murdering unarmed people in their beds is a fucking crime, regardless of what terrorism you're going to accuse those people of participating in. And yet that's totally okay. Sana Said pointed out she was liking tweets to a lot of unfounded claims from October 7th. We've still got to talk about October 7th. I read a post about this that I found very interesting. And I don't want to endorse every single thing in this message, but and this is just a random comment. I think this is a random YouTube comment. But I saw this and I found it really interesting. A really interesting analysis of this. And I don't know, I don't want to co-sign everything about this, but I think it's worth looking at. Okay, and we can talk about it. Okay, if we don't agree with this, we can talk about it. This is from a totally random comment. I don't even know where this is from. But I think it raises the central issue. If so many atrocities happened on October 7th, why all the lies? Why not just focus on the atrocities that happened? Why are we making shit up about beheaded babies or these roving rape gangs or pregnant women being attacked and having fetuses cut out of their bodies and all the horrifying atrocity porn that we've heard of that day? Why are lying? Why are we lying about things if there's these atrocities that are going on? So this is just a random comment. I don't know who this person is. I believe it's from YouTube, but I'm not even sure. But I just want to read this. This was the issue from day one. If Hamas committed unspeakable atrocities, then why were most of those unspeakable atrocity stories made up? Why would you need to invent stuff if actual atrocities happened? What I think happened. Hamas attacked the military garrison that enforced the Gaza blockade with the added intent of taking as many Israeli hostages as possible from that music festival that they stumbled upon and nearby kibbutzes, to be able to exchange for the hostages Israel takes all the time with impunity. Trying to get as many hostages safely back to Gaza as possible doesn't square at all with the murderous atrocity narrative. You can't have both taking hostages and murdering every Jew in sight as objectives at the same time. That makes no sense. Add to that the fact that the IDF did shoot at everyone in sight, fired at their own civilians with tank shells and Hellfire missiles even. The pictures they still present as evidence of Hamas atrocities are pictures of completely destroyed houses, charred cars, burned bodies, clearly the result of Israeli heavy munition. So they spun that as Hamas burned families alive and went from there, adding all kinds of ISIS-like embellishments. At this point, knowing what grotesque liars the Israelis are, and have been historically, I'm not even sure Hamas intentionally killed a single civilian on 7th of October. And listen, I don't even know if I don't know if I would go that far. I don't think it's that unlikely that people, we talked about this plenty, right? I don't think it's that unlikely that people, upon escaping from a concentration camp, killed people that have been responsible for putting them in the camp. I don't think that's that unlikely of a situation. I think that's entirely plausible that did take place on that day. That's always been the question for me, is how much of that is true and how much of it is a result of Israeli friendly fire. That's always been the question to me. And how many of these casualties were actual IDF targets, which are totally legally and morally, like they're totally legally and morally have the ability to fight back against these kinds of military targets. Finkelstein compared it to the Haitian Revolution or the Nat Turner slave revolt. Or the Indian Mutiny. Like we've talked about a number of these historical analogies. And I that's it. So I don't totally agree. Like I think it's entirely possible that acts of indiscriminate violence were taking place. I do kind of obviously we've talked a lot about the friendly fire narrative, the helicopters, the tank crews. And I do think there's an element of that that's very true, showing these destroyed buildings and burned people as an example of Hamas atrocities, which were caused by Israel. And as we know, and that's an undeniable fact, I think, at this point, that many of these like horrible atrocity stories that we've heard since that time were completely made up. And these have just been systematically debunked, over and over again. The hard truth is that even if it's all true, it changes absolutely nothing for me. That it's all downstream from the fact that Gaza is a concentration camp. This is the point I've been making on here, Carrier Wave, all these months, right? Is that like, if people escape from a concentration camp and they do terrible things upon escaping, I blame the people that put them in the camp in the first place for causing that to happen. In the same way that like the Nat Turner slave uprising, we talked about Finkelstein and his analysis of that, and talking about the anti-slavery act, the abolitionists, what they were saying about this Nat Turner slave uprising. And they were saying, this is horrible that this happened. This is horrible. These are horrible atrocities. And this is your fault, to the slave owners, to the people that were perpetuating that system. They're like, we told you this was going to happen. This is your fault. So that's always been my stance. If people escape from that kind of a situation, and we know the kind of violence that people have been having inflicted on them, from all the different bombing campaigns in Gaza, the Great March of Return, all the nonstop systematic dehumanization and violence and kidnapping and intentional maimings and stuff we see. When people escape from that situation and commit acts of violence, I think I blame the people that started that situation in the first place. There are elements of this, though, that I think are worth thinking about, even if I might not agree with like the entire premise of this. Yeah, or John Brown. Yeah, exactly. Another example. But I do think that's a big thing, is that a lot of these casualties were caused by friendly fire, and then they kind of worked backwards, and they have these people that are just like willing to lie about this, and you've got a compliant media establishment in America and elsewhere who just completely repeated that totally verbatim. And we've looked at the people that have been spreading these stories about like the mass rapes or whatever, these people that are like, they work for these nonpartisan organizations, or this person who's one of the primary sources for this like mass rape story, how he continually changes his story and continually adds new details to it. Yeah, it's not even friendly fire if they did it on purpose. I mean, it's friendly fire in that it's Israeli troops killing other Israeli civilians, citizens.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Joe, thank you so much. Joe, thank you for 10 gifted subs. I really appreciate that. Thank you very, very much for that. That's very, very kind of you. Yeah, the completely unbiased Wall Street Journal reporter who was in the IDF and actively worked against BDS in college. And like I was saying, she's in the IDF and she's on college campuses as an anti-BDS activist. She's working with the Israeli government and on college campuses, which would make her a foreign agent, basically. But of course, we never really talk about that. And yeah, and then we've got a Western media establishment that just prints this stuff verbatim. Yeah, absolutely. She was in the lobby. Absolutely. I don't think there's any question. If you're in the IDF and then a couple years later, you're a pro-Israel, anti-BDS activist on university campuses, yeah, you're part of the lobby. You're getting marching orders from the Israeli embassy. But I think that's the central question, though. You know, I'm not denying that bad stuff happened. I've never, and if anyone's watching this, hate watching this, trying to remove me from this platform or trying to do whatever, I have never denied that terrible things did happen on that day. That is a question, though, that I think we need to be asking. Why all the lies? And I think that, frankly, when it comes to Israel, and this should always be the case, we have to assume anytime Israel makes any of these claims, whether it's about atrocities that happened on October 7th, whether it's this UNRWA employees, that kind of stuff, or any accusation that they use to like justify bombing or kidnapping people, you have to assume first and foremost that it's a lie and work backwards from there. And like, I don't know what other conclusion we're supposed to draw when so many of the most outrageous claims from October 7th have been proven to be false. Like, what is that? You know what I mean? I haven't denied that bad things happened that day, but if there were all these atrocities, why are they relying on this made-up bullshit that doesn't hold up to basic scrutiny? I think that's a question that we need to be asking. And honestly, it makes me think, it really has been making me think about the whole concept of like the black book of communism and talking about all the atrocities, you know, the atrocity porn of all the communist regimes and making that big black book and the 50 bajillion killed and all that stuff. You realize it's not just about Israel. This is a strategy that's used to justify and prolong colonialism and imperialism and Western supremacy and hegemony and white supremacy ultimately. You know, this is like, there's a long tradition of this, not just in Israel, but about making shit up to denounce any opposition to your grotesque colonialist project. You know? No, and the playbook isn't working as well anymore. And that's the thing, even if all that shit was true, like we've been talking about, none of that justifies anything that Israel's done. And the violence that Israel has committed over the last 4 months is significantly worse than anything that they could say that happened on October 7th. Significantly worse.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk
Thank you,
through all
Magoobs.
this.
I'm glad you found the community as well. And thank you, Diego, for the gifted sub as well. But this is what I mean. It's like when someone that you know fucking lies all the time, every word that comes out of their mouth is a lie, eventually you kind of have to just assume that they're lying to you when they say these things. And then work backwards from there. If any of this shit can be proven, okay, we can have the discussion. Let's assume, though, when Israel says anything about this stuff, that they're fucking lying. They have a long history of this, not just in the last 4 months, but over decades of all this exact same stuff. You know, we've saw that from long before Hamas existed. As much as these delusional people think that like this is about Hamas or a war on Hamas, you know. This has been going on for a lot longer than Hamas even existed. You saw that like letter to the editor from the Times from like 2001 or something like that. With all the exact same, you know, oh, Hamas did this, the Palestinians did this. Okay, we did it, but we were going after Hamas. Or then it's like it's the same like adjustment that goes on like every single time, the adjustment of the truth. They lie systematically about everything. Exactly. At some point, you're being actively irresponsible, believing what these people say. And when I say these people, I'm talking about Israelis. In case that's not clear. At some point, though, you just have to assume that these are lies. When anyone connected to the Israeli government makes these kinds of claims. Anyway, I thought that comment was interesting. And again, it's just the central question. Why all the lies? You know, if you've got real stuff to focus on, why not just focus on the real stuff? Why are you making up all the most outrageous, disgusting, horrifying stories you can imagine? Like, we looked at some of the stories in this story in the New York Times, which the New York Times has now walked back. They pulled their podcast episode about this whole like mass rape allegation. That story, it's so manipulative. The whole thing starts with graphic descriptions of the worst assaults and the most brutal violence you can imagine. And then they spend the rest of the article saying like, oh yeah, this is all secondhand accounts from these completely untrustworthy people connected to this government that lies constantly, by the way. You know? And even the Times is walking this back. Or look at the CNN. Like even Western, they're treating Western media with such contempt that even like CNN is starting to like ask critical questions here.
We're asking the general if we can actually see the shaft to the tunnel.
But the answer is no.
Because they were digging up a cemetery.
I don't want you to just to take pictures of the security might force.
But what about if we don't film it? We just look with our eyes.
And then you might fall in. The whole thing can collapse. Or you have to walk to the edge. The edge is not secured. It can collapse. There's machinery, so on. It's not something I'm going to take a risk on. Sorry.
The Israeli military later provided this drone footage, showing the tunnel shaft we entered and another one nearby. CNN geolocated the footage using this satellite image. This outline shows where the cemetery once stood, and these are the two tunnel entrances clearly outside the graveyard. As for the tunnel they say they found here, where the cemetery once stood, the military never provided any evidence.
We're asking the general if we can actually see the shaft to the tunnel.
But the answer is no.
I'm sure this guy's going to lose his job soon. Okay, what else do we have here?
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Oh my. What's this? Sunny Sola, thanks for 5 gifted subs. Sunny Sola, I appreciate you. Thank you. Very, very, very kind of you. I'm going back to the UNRWA stuff. And the way defunding and destroying UNRWA has always been a goal for the Israeli regime. Here's Matt Miller, 9 days before the ICJ trial, talking about UNRWA.
Go ahead. Thank you, Matt. In light of a January 9 Israel Knesset member-led meeting in the Knesset condemning the UN agency, UNRWA, for fostering a welfare-dependent Palestinian population that breeds dissent and teaches children in their textbooks that the land is Palestine and
Imagine
Israel
teaching
is the illegal
children
occupier, with other instruction to hate and kill Jews, plus their
Always a
association
confession.
with terrorist groups like Hamas and Palestinian Authority. What is Secretary Blinken's response to Knesset members Sharon Haskell and Simcha Rotman, who are calling for the funding of UNRWA to stop. And I have a follow-up.
So I'm not going to respond to the comments by individual members of the Knesset, but I will say that UNRWA has done and continues to do invaluable work to address the humanitarian situation in Gaza at great personal risk to UNRWA members. I believe it's over 100 UNRWA staff members have been killed doing this life-saving work, and we continue to not only support it, but we continue
9 days
to
before the
commend
trial
them for the really heroic efforts that they make oftentimes while making the greatest sacrifice.
The follow-up is, how can you expect Israel and other nations to believe that the UN agency, UNRWA, is a credible humanitarian agency since, according to Jerusalem Post reports, UNRWA teachers and students celebrated Hamas' brutal attack on Israel October 7, and over half of the Hamas terrorists behind that massacre were graduates of UNRWA schools in Gaza, and weapons were found in UNRWA schools.
Well, I think most people in Gaza are graduates of UNRWA schools. They are one of the leading, if not the leading, providers of education. So I think that's a little bit of a there's a little bit of a breakdown in logic there. But I will say, I'll answer the question by saying, look, whenever we see reports of that nature, we ask specific questions about UNRWA and ask that they be followed up. It does not change the life-saving work that UNRWA is doing every day in Gaza that I just detailed a moment ago.
9 days before the ICJ trial. Now, because of this, again, so because of this intelligence report, which was promoted in the Wall Street Journal by a former member of the fucking IDF and a campus BDS, anti-BDS activist, because of the report, that report, so it's coming from Israeli intelligence being passed to someone with connections to the IDF and the Israeli embassy, being repeated uncritically in Western media like the Wall Street Journal, and then we're pausing the funding. And then Canada, of course, dutifully agrees, dutifully goes along with it. Here's January 4th. January 4th, 2024. Noga Arbel, former Israeli official.
ואנחנו במלחמה הוא לחסל את האיום ולא להרתיע אותו, ואנחנו יודעים איך לחסל פעילי טרור, קשה לנו יותר עם רעיון. אונר"א זה המקור של רעיון, שאמרה עינת, היא יולדת עוד ועוד טרוריסטים בכל מיני שיטות, ואי אפשר יהיה לנצח את המלחמה אם אנחנו לא נשמיד את אונר"א, וההשמדה הזו חייבת להתחיל מיד. זה לא רלוונטי לדבר על היום שאחרי. ביום שעכשיו אנחנו חייבים לפעול להכירה של האיומים האלה לחלוטין, או שאנחנו נפספס את חלון ההזדמנויות, כפי שצוין פה כמה וכמה פעמים כבר עשינו. ובהקשר הזה יש שני מכלולי פעולה שאנחנו יכולים להתקדם היום. האחד זה היחס של מדינת ישראל לאונר"א ולמדינות שתורמות לה, והשני זה היחס לאוכלוסייה הפלסטינית שאונר"א משרתת, לפעמים בצורה סמי לגיטימית. כדי להתמודד עם אונר"א עצמה, בוא נזכור שהיא פועלת כאן, בשטחים שישראל כבשה ב-67, מכוח הבקשה של ישראל שהיא תעשה את זה. זה מה שהכניס אותה לפה. ישראל יכולה עכשיו לבקש ממנה להפסיק. ובאותה הזדמנות לכפור במעמד הפליט, שהיא מחלקת מאוד מאוד בנדיבות, כי לפלילית יש תבחינים בינלאומיים. את התעודות של אונר"א אי אפשר להעביר, צריך לבטל. אורתן בחטא, הן צריכות ללכת לפח. מי שמגיע לו, שילך ויבדוק עם ה-UNHCR, אם באמת מגיע לו.
Yeah, I mean, we got to talk about this idea as well, which gets perpetuated. That like, oh, these UNRWA schools, they're teaching they're teaching Palestinian kids to hate Israelis. Can you imagine? Can you imagine how depraved? It's like, you don't need a fucking curriculum to teach kids that the people that are forcing them to live in a concentration camp, who bomb them like once every few years, who kill their parents and their uncles and aunts and grandparents and nephews and nieces and brothers and sisters and fathers and mothers. You don't need to put that in a school curriculum to get those kids to hate them. They're going to get that message just fine. Like that is fucking insane to me. This idea, oh, they're teaching Palestinian kids to hate Israel. Like, it's absolutely ludicrous. Why don't they like the concentration camp guards and occupiers? Why don't they like the people that are killing their parents and their families? Why don't they like the people that are blockading them and starving them? You know, just absolutely insane. And I got to talk about this as well. Oh, and we're going to just, I want to talk about a few Canadian things. And listen, like I've had a lot of criticisms for, you know, the NDP, people in the Canadian left institutionally not handling this moment well. I did see this comment from Heather McPherson, who's NDP MP for Edmonton, Strathcona, who had a pretty great statement on this. So I think, like, I don't have a lot of hope in the NDP as like a excuse me. I'm so tired. I don't have a lot of confidence in the NDP as like an electoral vehicle for progressive politics. But when people in the NDP do and say good things, I think it's worth pointing that out. And this statement was really great from Heather McPherson.
The ICJ ruled that there is a risk of genocide in Gaza. The Liberals paused funding to UNRWA, which is a lifeline for millions of innocent Palestinians. People will lose their lives. And unbelievably, the Conservative leader has accused 30,000 UNRWA humanitarian workers of being terrorists. He does not deserve to lead. We support an investigation into the 12 former staff, but defunding UNRWA is collective punishment and it is illegal. When will the Liberals stop abandoning Palestinians?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister for International Development.
Thank my colleague for that important question. These allegations are extremely disturbing and we take them very seriously. We've communicated that to the head of UNRWA, Philippe Lazzarini.
Do you imagine the Ukraine hawk? Can't win them all.
To do is to pause funding while this investigation is ongoing. We will continue to be there for Palestinian civilians through working with
we've helped them. We've helped kill 25,000 people. We're going to continue to be there to help them.
Much needed supplies to the people of Gaza.
We're going to continue to be there to help them. Like, we're literally helping the Israeli government commit genocide right now. That's what I can't stand. That's one thing that I cannot stand about our like liberal ruling class. You know what I mean? I just wish they would just admit that they're fucking genocidal freaks. You know, I hate on one hand arming and funding and giving total immunity to Israel to engage in this kind of like rampant violence, mass murder, ethnic cleansing, criminality, and then at this exact same time, on the other hand, out of the other side of their mouths saying like, oh, but our heart just bleeds for the Palestinians. Oh, if there was something we can do. We're just really trying to help any way we can, trying to make sure that they get relief, whatever. It's like, I almost just wish they would fucking admit it. You know? It makes me sick. It makes me absolutely sick to my stomach, these people. Love me, I'm a liberal. I mean, he nailed them. He fucking nailed them. Bill Oakes fucking nailed these people decades ago, and none of them have grown and changed. They're all the exact same. Like, yeah, at least the Zionist hogs admit that they crave the blood. Like, just admit it. Just fucking admit it. I think it's so disgusting. I have more respect for the Zionist freaks, even though I despise and loathe those people. I have more respect for them because at least they're honest about what they want. I cannot stand this like double dealing liberal two-faced bullshit about this. Not even about this, but about Palestine, about indigenous rights, about the climate, about social justice, any issue like that. While supporting all the exact same institutions that perpetuate all this kind of violence against marginalized people around the world. And supporting that nonstop and demonizing anyone that tries to do anything to organize against that. And then saying, oh, we're so supportive of these social issues. Like, fuck you. Fuck off. It's so gross. And this is another example of this, actually. Like I tweeted about this earlier. And I should have mentioned this yesterday, and I regret not mentioning it yesterday. There was so much going on. that it was the anniversary of the Quebec City mosque attack. Yesterday. You know? And it's like you have Justin Trudeau trying to like make a point about this. And also like there was also the Holocaust Remembrance Day. So it's like, let's do Holocaust Remembrance Day while we're helping a genocide happen right now, while we just give a standing ovation to a Nazi in our parliament building. And let's also remember the victims of the Quebec City mosque attack while we're simultaneously helping kill 25,000 fucking people in Gaza. Mostly women and kids. We're supposed to pretend we care about the victims of a mass shooting in a mosque in Quebec City when we're out there just openly supporting Arabs and Muslims in Palestine being genocided. It's so fucking grotesque. The past few months have not been easy for Muslim and Arab Canadians. Yeah, no shit, buddy. No shit, it hasn't been easy because you're helping Israel kill their families. Like, it's crazy. To those who I spoke with today who shared that message with me, your pain, your fear, and your hurt have not gone unnoticed. I hear you. I didn't even read this. I was so mad. He actually did the I see you, I hear you thing. I hear you, and I'm focused on working with you to make things better. Does that mean we're going to stop Israel from doing the genocide? Well, no. We're not going to be doing that. We're going to continue doing the genocide. But I do see you and I hear you, and we're going to continue to focus on getting things to be better. Yeah, and what that means is like having more Arabs in the Liberal Party who will put a rubber stamp on your genocidal agenda in Gaza and support Israel. Like, that's pretty much the extent of what that could possibly mean. I hear you, I see you, I defund UNRWA. That's right. Like, god damn it, I just cannot stand this shit anymore. These fucking liars. They're Weasley little liars. You're a Weasley little liar, dude. You know? And it's such a show of disrespect to the families that lost loved ones in Quebec City in 2016. Or no, it was early 2017. Excuse me. It spits in their faces. The fact that we like contribute to this kind of, and like this whole support for Israel leads to Islamophobia at home as well. You know? This whole fixation on like, are these pro-Palestine supporters terrorists? Are these pro-Palestine supporters, do they just hate Jewish people? Are these pro-Palestine supporters, protesting Indigo? Oh, the small little mom and pop Jewish-owned bookstore? Like, this is what we're perpetuating when we support Israel and when we support Zionism. We demonize Arabs and Muslims. We put a fucking target on their backs. We accuse them of being like basically Nazis and terrorist sympathizers. And then we say, oh, it's been such a hard time for our Arab and Muslim community. We just want to make sure that we work with them to make things better. I can't stand this shit. It's absolutely grotesque. Jewish-owned bookstores that donated cluster bombs to the Golani Brigade. Again, they're not just Zionists. It's like we're giving material support for people to go join the IDF to go shoot people in Gaza or drop bombs on their houses. Yeah, and Doc, not so strange. This one called literally all protesters paid Iranian ops. Well, we talked about the link between Code Pink and how in the New York Times, especially, they've tried to frame Code Pink. And we saw the whole thing with Nancy Pelosi, that thing yesterday where she was telling Code Pink protesters, like, go back to your home in China or whatever, which was a little bit of fake news because it was a clip from a few months ago. I still think it's important to look at that clip because it shows how deranged some of these people are. But that entire link is just through, Singham, Roy Singham? Is that his name? Neville Roy Singham, who's an American businessman that funds progressive anti-war activism that does business in China. That's the link. To say nothing of the fact of what all the fucking money that Israel spends lobbying on these promoting these campus groups and anti-BDS initiatives, funding fucking congressmen, owning congressmen and members of parliament. And journalists as well. But no, Code Pink takes money from a billionaire that happens to have some progressive social views and anti-war views that does business in China. So we better just frame this as being this foreign influence op. And then look the other way while Israel is just taking members of the IDF, putting them in high-ranking places in American media, and then uncritically reporting Israeli intelligence reports in our media to justify support for genocide. That's not a foreign influence op. That's just journalism. That's just whatever. Who cares about that? Yeah, the Code Pink is great because people are saying that's what Pelosi meant. Go back to China was her way of saying they're a Chinese op. Yeah, and that's because of reporting that appeared in the New York Times linking Code Pink to Neville Roy Singham. Diego, thank you very much for the gifted sub. So we've talked a lot about Israel. Let's go back to talking about the possibility of expanding war with Iran. Oh, actually, I have one final thing here to talk about because this is important as well. Every single whole foreign influence op pales in comparison to Israel. There should not be a comparison at all. Yeah, I mean, even let's say for the sake of argument that the CCP is funding Code Pink. Okay, first of all, that's exactly what America does around the world. Is funding NGOs in other countries, funding journalists in other countries. America does that around the world in order to advance and support American and Western hegemony. Around the world, and has for many, many years. So even if 100% of those allegations are true, that's an activity that America does around the world and has for a very long time. But yeah, let's say China. So yeah, someone that was in the PLA, someone from the PLA, someone who served in the People's Liberation Army in China. Coming back to become the editor of a mainstream media publication in America and publishing pro-China articles in that paper where they take intel given to them by Chinese intelligence and just repeat it uncritically in this magazine. That would be comparable to what Israel does. That would be actually comparable. It's not just let's give some funding to Code Pink. Is let's have someone from our military or our intelligence edit and write articles in major mainstream newspapers in the United States of America where we pass off intelligence from the Chinese intelligence community as being factual to promote pro-China narratives. That would be comparable to what Israel does. Yeah, and that's the good point, Cinnamon Challenge. We don't need checks from anyone to agree with the world consensus. Like, as always, it's always an accusation because they're the ones that are on the payroll. They're the ones getting paid. We're simply agreeing with the vast majority of the world's population. But look at this. I thought this was really interesting too. So yeah, there was like rocket attacks. There was rocket attacks yesterday. You saw like Barry Weiss, like, oh, we got to get down. I'm on the highway, and there's rocket attacks happening. This is so scary. Like, what has Gaza been like for the last 4 months? Which Barry Weiss is fully supported.
الآن رشقة صاروخية بالتجارة بين المحتلة، رشقة كبيرة، رشقة صاروخية بالتجارة بين المحتلة في هذه اللحظات، ويسمع دوي انفجارات في هذه.
So, but what does this show? This shows that Israel has not in any way limited Hamas's ability to target Israel with these rocket attacks. You saw there was rocket attacks all over Tel Aviv yesterday. But look at this. So it looks like Hamas stopped firing at Tel Aviv just after South Africa filed its application to the ICJ on December 29th. All January, as the ICJ set a date, heard arguments, and then gave their orders, Hamas did not fire a rocket at Tel Aviv. They said just before the ICJ announced its decision that they would abide by a ceasefire order from the ICJ. Then on Friday, the ICJ orders came. Israel kept bombing. US and co. then went after UNRWA. Only then did Hamas resume strikes at Tel Aviv. It certainly appears from Hamas POV, they gave international law a chance. International law didn't stop Israel, so they fired rockets. And it says in this paper, Hamas fires rockets to Tel Aviv for the first time since January 1st. That was funny when the Iron Dome blew itself up. Okay. What time do we have? I think I might just get a glass of water before we continue. Is it okay if I get a little glass of water? Is that okay with you? Is it okay with you, chat? No, Zayna406 comes in, first time chatter, says no. Says no to the water. Here's just two more things. Before we get into like talking more closely about the Iran stuff, here's just two more things. Like, again, we talk about this question of like Israeli civilians, whatever. Oh, they teach in Gaza, they just teach kids to hate Israel. Can you believe how these monsters, they just hate Israel. They just want Israelis to die. Look at this remarkable clip. They're from all different sides of the Israeli political spectrum. They say they're from the right, from the left, they're religious, they're secular. Some of them are families of hostages, but all coming out for the simple aim of trying to stop humanitarian aid.
Different people out here, and we're going to interview some of them that we can try and find to talk to, some of them who came out, but they're members from all different sides.
I think this is a lot more representative of the average Israeli than like some of our liberal Zionist friends would have us believe. As much as they say, oh, people, these Palestinians in Gaza, they're taught since birth to just hate people, hate Israelis. Can you believe this? These are people from across the political spectrum in Israel, coming in here to block humanitarian aid from getting into Gaza.
They say they're from the right, they're people from the left, they're religious, they're secular.
Edgewalker69, I don't know anyone that says that.
Some of them are families of hostages, but all coming out for the simple goal of saying trying to stop humanitarian aid. So Shoshana, do you want to join me and tell us a little bit about why you came out here today, why it's important for you to come here and protest? Why do you think they need to stop this aid?
Well, all the hate that's going in is going straight to Hamas. It's just supporting
Hamas.
terrorists. I don't see any reason to support terrorism. Nobody wants that. We just want our hostages home. We want to stop Hamas. I don't understand why that's a problem.
This woman is American.
Supporting Hamas.
Different people out here, and we're going to interview some of them.
This woman is American. You're not from the Middle East, ma'am. You're fucking American.
From all different sides of the Israeli political spectrum.
You are not from the Middle East.
There are people from the left. They're religious. They're secular. Some of them are families of hostages, but all coming out for the simple goal of trying to stop humanitarian aid. So
Jesus Christ. And then finally this, I got a poll here as well. Yeah, mid-January poll. A mid-January poll found that 95% of Jewish Israelis thought the Israeli military was using either the appropriate amount of force or too little force in Gaza. 95%. .95%. And I will always remember that Abby Martin clip where she's just talking to average folks on the street. And they're the most racist, genocidal psychos you can imagine. I'll be right back. I'm just going to get a glass of water. I know I'm muted. I did the classic move where I did chug a glass at the sink. I chugged one glass at the sink and then I filled up a second glass. I'm no longer muted. The old chug and refill, exactly. The classic maneuver. Should get an Advil, actually. I'm a bit sore. It is a pro move. Okay, so let's now. I think this is absolutely incredible. This is the position that the Biden administration is now in. We talked about these escalating attacks in Iraq, in Syria, attacking these Iran-backed militias in response, or accusing these Iran-backed militias of attacking their bases. And I think this is really incredible because now Biden is being forced to kind of think about a response to this. And this is the position that they've painted themselves in. And again, there's a way out of this, and the way out of it is to stop the genocide from happening. There's an easy answer to all of this. This is an incredible situation, honestly. The Biden is ordering his advisors to present a range of U.S. response options that would forcefully deter other attacks while also not further inflaming a smoldering region, according to two officials from Politico. Within the administration, top aides are trying to thread a needle. Biden is ordering his advisors to present a range of U.S. response options that would forcefully deter other attacks while also not further inflaming a smoldering region, according to two officials granted anonymity because they're not authorized to speak publicly about private deliberations. Like, these are mutually exclusive. There's no option here where you can you can respond to these attacks, respond to troops being killed now on the Syrian border, while also not inflaming the situation further. I'm sorry, this is not possible. What they can do is stop the genocide from happening. And then the attacks will stop. Then the Red Sea blockade will open up. You know, this whole idea that like, oh, we're gonna respond by bombing somebody, but without escalating. There is no situation now where this doesn't continue to escalate as long as the genocide is continuing. And they keep thinking we can do one of these defensive, retaliatory, de-escalatory bombing campaigns. They tried that in Yemen, and now it's just leading to, lo and behold, it's leading to more escalation. And now they're just thinking about the same strategy. Who can we bomb without escalating this? That's not an option. That's not a possibility. Now, yeah, it was a de-escalating drone strike on those U.S. soldiers. Exactly. It was a defensive, de-escalatory drone strike. What the fuck was that guy talking about? I was trying not to pay attention to it. So this is the position the Biden administration is in, though. We need to bomb somebody, but we need to not escalate this. And because, of course, stopping funding Israel, stopping the genocide from happening is just not an option. And look at this amazing clip as well, where they admit that they don't actually know who was responsible for that drone strike. They don't even know that Iran was responsible. Here's the Pentagon admitting. That there is no evidence Iran was behind the attack that killed 3 U.S. troops, but is blaming them anyway.
Just to follow up, you said Iran was behind the attack. So what does that mean? Have you seen evidence of financing or directing anything specific to this attack? Not just generally, but specifically.
So maybe I need to clarify further from what Lita had mentioned. We know that Iran funds these groups, like Kataib Hezbollah. We know that these IRGC-backed militias are the ones responsible for attacks on our troops in Iraq and Syria. Beyond that, we're doing an intelligence assessment. We don't.
Weird how they're also responsible for defeating ISIS in that region. That's kind of strange, isn't it? These IRGC-backed groups. Like, again, we know some of these militias are backed by Iran. They're armed and trained by Iran. They were armed and trained to do so to fight these ISIS lunatics in the chaos unleashed by the United States in Iraq and Syria, which just so conveniently led to the formation of these Islamic extremist groups who seems to attack their enemies like Iran. Why are our troops in Iraq and Syria? That's a great question. That's a really great question that no one seems to want to have answers to.
IRGC-backed militias are the ones responsible for attacks on our troops in Iraq and Syria. Beyond that, we're doing an intelligence assessment. We don't have. I can't give you today that.
This attack, linking it to Iran.
We just know that Iran funds these groups like Kataib Hezbollah and other groups that have attacked our forces, but I don't have more to share on that.
You're saying, right?
As a general matter, yes.
Unbelievable. Okay, I'm getting a little bit tired of talking. I've been hooting and hollering and talking for quite a while now, so I'm going to see if there's some kind of maybe clip we can take a look at here about this. More Pentagon girl bosses. Exactly. This is liberal diversity. Okay, and look at that. Here, just now, right on time, we got Eugene and Rania from Breakthrough News, 2 friends of the show, with this clip. We've got a 20-minute clip from Breakthrough News. Is it true that Hamas, Ansar Allah, and Hezbollah are Iranian proxies? So let's hear about that then.
Turn our attention here to another very important part of the world in West Asia, that is Iran. And we are very, very honored to be joined once again by Mazda Majidi, longtime anti-war activist and an organizer with the Answer Coalition. Mazda, thanks so much for being back with us.
Hi, Eugene. Hi, Rania. I'm glad to be here.
Hello, Dave.
Well, I want to start with a story that I think probably some people are somewhat confused about. There's some headlines, but not a lot of explanation. That's the tensions between Iran and Pakistan. Both countries have launched missiles into each other's territory, although it's maybe not at each other per se, but into each other's territory. Maybe just explain what's going on here, Mazda, because I think the way it's being presented is that, you know, the countries may be headed towards a bigger conflict.
Yes, it's very inaccurate the way it's being portrayed.
Well, this is the question we've been asking lately. Three geese in a trench coat. How likely is it that U.S. intervention in Yemen will lead to more Bush-era wars? This is the situation right now. It's like this. It seems like every day we're taking one more step to this turning into a fucking disastrous full-scale war here with Iran, which there's plenty of appetite in Washington D.C. for people that have wanted that for a very long time. And I don't know like what the path is here, honestly. It seems like there's no going back. They're completely fucking stuck in this situation now. They're not going to stop funding Israel, so the attacks are going to continue. They can't continue to pretend to ignore these attacks, which they've kind of tried to do. They're going to have to respond, which is going to lead to another response. I just don't see the way out here. I mean, we see the way out is stop funding Israel, stop the genocide. We see, obviously, by now, people in the Biden administration have no interest in that. So I don't know. It seems a lot to me like we're just on this inescapable path towards a fucking absolute disaster situation. I would love to be wrong, as usual, about these things. Oh, for sure, Bolden is just like losing it right now.
Trade here in the West.
Please don't talk about Hollywood Code. You know, I love you. I'm happy to have you in the chat. Please don't talk about John Bolton being bricked up. Please, that is awful. That is just an awful thing to think about.
Eastern region of Iran is the province of Baluchistan, Sistan and Baluchistan, and so is the southwestern region of Pakistan. In both regions, there's an insurgency, a separatist movement, but especially the separatist movement in Iran is supported by U.S. and Israel. Now, this is a region that's very dry, very desert, and the forces there can kind of move in and out of both countries and Afghanistan, which is farther north for that matter, because it's all desert. And it's really hard to control the desert. There's very little water, very little population there, and so forth. So what has happened, particularly in the last couple of years, but it really goes back decades, but in Iran, the separatist forces, some of them with ties with Al-Qaeda, many of them with ties who get money from Israel, they launch these operations within Iran. They kill military commanders, including colonels and high-ranking officers. So what transpired recently was that Iran, after years of suggesting to Pakistan to be more adamant about controlling the
Mark Sivelli, that sounds very painful to listen
both
to.
sides of the border, but in reality, in the Pakistan's region of Baluchistan, they seem to have a little bit of a freer hand. So Iran targeted some of the places where these separatist forces, either was their kind of militia centers or locations where had some significance for them. And of course, this was a cross-border attack, and Pakistan responded within a few days by targeting, in fact, similar forces, but on the Iranian side of the border. And of course, in this case, Iran protested and so forth. But in reality, this never really represented a deep divide between the two countries on this issue. But because, both countries have common interests when it comes to dealing with the Baluchi separatists. And so, in fact, right after the rocket attack that happened by Pakistan within Iran in a border town, both countries declared that we're not going to let this escalate, and both countries have friendly relationships and so forth. So this is not a conflict that has the possibility of becoming an escalating regional conflict.
And of course, the one that does have the possibility of becoming an escalating regional conflict is what's happening with Israel's genocide in Gaza. You have all of these non-state actors, groups like Hezbollah and the Iraqi PMF and the Houthis, as they're called, are Ansar Allah in Yemen. Well, I guess that is kind of the state right now. But all that said, I mean, these are all organizations that are very much organic and indigenous to their areas and consider themselves resistance groups. But you have this portrayal in the US media that actually, like, Iran is, because Iran is allied with these groups, is partnered with these groups, is actually puppeteering them. They're all just Iranian proxies that answer to the Ayatollah, and that includes Hamas. Hamas is portrayed the same way in US media. And as a result, everything that happens, whether it's Ansar Allah intervening by blocking ships that are heading towards Israel in the Red Sea to try to pressure the end to this genocide with economic consequences, or whether you have this sort of tit-for-tat violence taking place between Hezbollah and the Israelis in South Lebanon, or whether we're talking about the various Iraqi groups firing at American positions in Iraq and Syria, or Hamas fighting the Israelis. All of this is portrayed as Iran's hand. And so people are concerned that this could lead, if it continues, because all these groups are saying, as long as there's a genocide in Gaza, we will continue to hit at American and Israeli targets until the genocide ends. All this is being portrayed wrongly in the American media as Iran, and this could lead to a hot war with Iran. So I'm just curious, what is your take on what I just described, the potential escalation of a broader regional war that everybody's so concerned about, and how it's being portrayed in US media?
Well, you're right, Rania, and I think it's important to talk about this thing of portraying all these resistance forces as simply proxies for Iran. I mean, in a way, you can understand why the U.S. does that, because the forces allied with the U.S. are essentially mercenaries. They don't believe in anything. They don't fight for anything that they believe in. They get money, and there's actually many reports of mercenaries currently being used in Israel in the genocide of Gaza. And so the U.S. kind of assumes that, these other forces are the same. But the other component, though, and the other reason that the U.S. wants to look at it like that is just part of Iran versus Israel, Iran versus Saudi Arabia, is to dismiss the authentic, character of these movements. These are movements of people who put their lives on the line for their beliefs. And in particular, I want to emphasize the resistance in Yemen and the solidarity that the Yemenis are showing for Palestine. I mean, Yemen, having gone through 7 years of Saudi bombings and occupation and destruction, poverty levels of about 50%, and the economy in shambles and so forth. I mean, if you told me in mid-October that the Yemenis are going to play a significant role in solidarity with the people of Gaza, I would have laughed like Rania is laughing right now. And it's amazing, how could you be a people in so much hardship, in so much difficulty, disease, starvation, yet make it a priority to show solidarity, not in words, not by making statements, but in action.
This is what I've been saying, right?
With the people of Gaza.
I've been saying this.
If we have time, we can talk a little bit more about what those actions are. But the fact is, whether it's Hezbollah in Lebanon, or the Ansar Allah, or the Houthis in Yemen, or Hamas, these are genuine resistance movements. We could talk in detail about them and who they get support from. But none of these forces are proxies of Iran or anyone else for that matter. It is a lineup of forces in the region, as you might expect. There's the pro-imperialist, pro-Zionist forces. There's the pro-independence forces, and of course, these states and forces line up, providing support to one another.
No, I think that's a crucially important point, and I'm glad you raised it, because it does feel that is one of the elements that make it difficult for people in the West, especially, to really understand, is they're not understood as political movements. And it seems to me that they're not understood in their proper context, right? As if there has not been this massive U.S. attempt and, British attempt and French attempt going on for, nearly a century now to sort of shape and determine what, who will rule these areas, who cares what the people who live there think, and that there may be a reaction to that. So talk more, if you could, about that point that you raised at the end about who's really supporting these people and what this really represents, because I think there's such a sinister kind of framing put over it in terms of what's going on, that people get confused about who's who and what's what.
Like Yemen in particular, Eugene?
Well, Yemen in particular, but any others you want to comment on as well.
Okay. Well, let me start with Yemen. I mean, the people of Yemen, of course, there were, political conflict. It's a country that holds elections. It had a parliament. It has a president. But of course, many difficulties exist. And like the biggest difficulty that the Yemenis suffer is Saudi intervention. If you look at a map, Yemen is part of the Arabian Peninsula, and it is the part that has no oil. So there's a vast difference between Yemen and Saudi Arabia in terms of wealth. When the forces called in the U.S. mainly, or in the West, as Houthis, it's a political formation called Ansar Allah. When they were beginning to emerge as victorious in the civil conflict in Yemen, Saudi Arabia intervened. It wasn't just Saudi Arabia. It was a coalition of forces led by Saudi Arabia, mostly reactionary Persian Gulf monarchies. And the war lasted for 7 years. Saudi Arabia, taking a page from the U.S. Air Force, bombed schools and mosques and weddings, and there were a lot of deaths. And of course, the U.S. fully supported them, and especially now, you can see why. I'm saying, from the perspective of the imperialists, from the perspective of the reactionary governments in the Persian Gulf, it is very embarrassing today to have the people of Yemen, led by Ansar Allah, providing resistance to Israel and showing solidarity for the people of Gaza, where they have no interest whatsoever. Yemen doesn't have any borders with Israel, is not particularly close to Israel. But one point in geography is that, the waterway, the Gulf of Aden, leading to the Red Sea, goes through a narrow strait called Bab el-Mandab, which is, about 20 miles, and there's even an island in between it. So the ships that provide oil and other supplies to Israel have to go through the Bab el-Mandab. And despite its limited military capabilities, the Yemeni military has decided to target every Israeli ship and every ship headed for Israel with supplies as a way of providing support for the people of Gaza. But basically, whether we're talking about Ansar Allah and the Yemeni people and the Houthis, or we're talking about southern Lebanon or Hezbollah or Hamas, we're talking about movements, very much movements, not proxy forces, not even militaries, although they have militias and they have armed wings, but there are movements for independence against Israeli Zionism and U.S. imperialism. And these are movements that have existed in the region in one form or another ever since the end of World War I and the Sykes-Picot Treaty. And the U.S. can say, and Israel can say whatever they want about Hamas and Hezbollah and so forth. They may even, have successes in repressing them, but resistance itself is not going to go away, no matter how much they do it. And labeling this or that force as a proxy of Iran or another country is not going to change that fact.
Yeah. I mean, it really is such an incredible, mischaracterization that everybody genuinely believes. But I just want to ask you one more thing, and that is, Iran is, you mentioned ideological, right? Like you mentioned the fact that a lot of these other reactionary governments are just mercenaries. They're just in it for money. They're just in it for staying in power. Whereas these groups we're talking about, they sacrifice a lot, right? And they're doing it for something. They're doing it for their sovereignty, for their land, to protect their territory, to protect their people. And with Iran being such an important material supporter of all of that, I'm just curious if you can explain, why does Iran support all of these groups? Why is Iran partnered with all these resistance groups across the region? If you ask, the New York Times, it would be Iran just hates America and wants to make life miserable for America.
Why would they ever think that?
But can you talk a little bit about Iran's reasoning there?
Well,
Can't believe that they would think that. They're just monsters.
Palestine is almost never talked about in the West. So it is just they hate Americans, they like to kill people, this kind of stuff. But Iran, of course, went through the 1953 CIA coup. It wasn't a CIA-supported coup. It was a CIA planned and carried out coup. It was the first successful CIA operation in regime change. And they managed to overthrow the democratic government of Mohammad Mossadegh and put in the Shah as an absolute monarch. So from 1953 to 1979, Iran was under, U.S. client, the Shah, and one of the most ruthless dictators in the region.
And we've seen the phenomenon too. We've talked about it on the show, but we've seen the phenomenon about Iranian diaspora pro-Shah Zionists, which is really just one of the most cursed combinations of identities that you could be. We've seen a couple of these folks. The Iranian diaspora is just absolutely wild.
The Savak, Iran's version of the Mossad or the CIA, was known as having the worst. I mean, the UN called it having the worst human rights records on the planet. So when the revolution happened, of course, Iran had already gone through that, and various political groups and movements, there was no doubt as to who was responsible for the 26 years of an extreme dictatorship that they had suffered. It was Iran.
26 fucking years.
One of the things that further solidified
they just hate America. They hate our freedoms.
For the U.S. was the Iranian Revolution, because the U.S. Saw that no matter how many advanced weapons that you provide to right-wing governments, such as that of the Shah, there's always the possibility that the people will rise up and overthrow them. With Israel, there's not that chance, because the very foundation of Israel is based on being a settler state, a colonial state, and hostility to the indigenous people of the region. So now that there's no longer the Shah, I think Israel is even more valuable for the U.S. as a stable outpost in the region, although I must say that stability is now questioned by the uprising of the Palestinians against tremendous odds. But
we've also had them under, this is a good point, we've also had them under sanctions for decades. Israel and the U.S. have sabotaged their infrastructure, assassinated their scientists. And the whole Iran deal was Iran trying to get out from under those sanctions. They negotiated that deal in good faith. They were compliant with the deal. And as we've talked about many times, it was Donald Trump and the United States just walked away from that deal for no reason, just because they decided they didn't want to do it anymore. And then Biden comes in and then has the fucking audacity to be like, oh, Iran, if they want to come back in the deal, they have to meet this precondition and this precondition. No, that's not how this shit works. You're the ones that walked away from the deal. And now they're complaining, oh, they might have a nuclear program. Well, yeah, no shit. They tried to do things the right way. They tried to negotiate in good faith. That's why you don't make deals with the United States of America, because they're snakes. They're snakes and liars. No shit, they have a nuclear program. It's just these Americans are just so amazing to me, how they completely ignore all of this context and just frame these people as just being these the United Snakes of America. That's right. And they just frame people in these countries as just being these deviant America-hating reactionaries and ignore completely all of that. I think that's part of it, HTA, just because it was an Obama thing. I think that's part of it. But also there's like Iran hawks. There's way more Iran hawks in the Trump administration than there was in the Biden administration. So it's not just that Trump hated Obama, but also just that like the idea that you would make a deal with Iran and give them back money, billions of dollars of their money. Like that's what they're saying. Obama's just sending billions of dollars to Iran. It was literally giving them their own money, which America never had any right to take away in the first place. History starting in 1776. Just lighting off fireworks and slamming Keystone lights. One of the delightful things about Americans is they have absolutely no historical memory. Fucking, it's just it constantly perplexes me. Yeah, no, I agree, HTA. But yeah, I think he was also manipulated by Iran hawks to be like, you don't like that Obama guy, right? Well, we got to get out of this deal then. So it was kind of I think I see that as being kind of like both of those elements kind of working at the same time.
While it is hard to even know these things following the U.S. media, the people in the region know what's been happening in the region. And by the way, again, the problem with the solidarity that Hezbollah and Ansarullah and others are showing, these indigenous forces, these movements are showing with the people of Gaza, is how much the reactionary Arab governments are not doing, are in effect supporting Israel, or at most, making some broad statements while still providing supplies to Israel. If Yemen and the Houthis and Ansarullah can do so much to disrupt shipping to Israel, imagine if the Arab states, if the Gulf monarchies were serious or semi-serious against doing anything against Israel, imagine how much they could do. And I think that's very, very embarrassing to Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates to see the Houthis, Yemen, with such limited resources doing so much, and them just making periodic statements about, the Israeli approach not being helpful, or some statement to that effect.
Well, before we let you go, I just want to ask you this too, Mazda, picking up on that point. The opposition media, the Iranian opposition media, as you well know, has been since October 7th, filled with stories about how no one in Iran supports Iran backing Palestinians, that everyone thinks it's a waste of money, that no one's doing this. You travel often to Iran, you talk to a lot of people from many different walks of life. How do you respond to those sorts of characterizations?
It is, the opposition, the pro-US, pro-Israel media definitely say that. And that is definitely true about a part of the population. That's the more affluent people in northern Tehran and other cities, to whom support for Palestine is bad. It's a curse word. These people are proud of themselves for stepping on the Palestinian flag. They take out the name tag of a street, Palestine or Palestine street, and they step on it, and they take photos as a sort of a heroic act. But the majority of the Iranian people support the struggle of Palestine. There has been demonstrations in support of Palestine in many, many cities across Iran, in literally hundreds of cities and towns across Iran. Support for the people of Gaza is very strong. And I want to say this, there is very little variation across the region on this point. Yes, there is a sector of the population, the more privileged, that ally themselves with the interest of the imperialists and the colonizers, but the vast majority of the population have nothing but support and solidarity for Palestine. So in that sense, not only is the Islamic Republic not doing anything that's against the wishes of the masses of people, but in fact, they're responding for a demand by the people to support Palestinians in every way that it can.
Mm-hmm. Mazda Majidi, organizer with the Answer Coalition, thank you so much for giving us some of your time here on the Freedom Side.
Thank you very much.
Great stuff, as usual, from our friends at Breakthrough News, two friends of the stream, Eugene Puryear and Rania. Make sure you go support their content. Subscribe to Breakthrough News. Matt, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. Really, my brain is not doing good right now.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Critical Mass, for 22 months tier 1. I appreciate that. Even after you house that second Diet Coke. I mean, you can drink as much caffeine as you want. If you're on no sleep, it doesn't do a lot of good. We are 10 measly subs away from the goal. I am going to be around here for about another 30 minutes or so. 10 measly subs away, though. So if you do enjoy the stream, folks, please subscribe if you can. Please subscribe if you can. 10 minor measly subs to go to get to the goal. So if you can, please subscribe to TRRS. Oh, let's see what else we have to look at here. What else do we have here? I guess we could take a look at like what some of mainstream media is saying about this. Maybe there's something on Al Jazeera that might be good. Let's check in with Bethany, Disgusting Mask at Mandel. I think I know exactly what tweet that is without even clicking on it, Baldwin. Is it the tweet where she's like, oh, yeah, when someone's talking about the Israeli commandos assassinating unarmed people in a hospital and being like, well, if Hamas was in a hospital, they would just kill everyone. So, like, not even denying the crime, but just being like, if Hamas did it, they would have been way worse. Yeah. That's the intellectual seriousness of these fucking pro-Israel people. Oh yeah, well, Trump will be even worse. I mean, this is all, yeah, exactly. It's like, let's just go back and forth here. Let's just go back and forth on this. The tried and true, if things weren't the same, they would be different argument. What if the situation was completely different from the one that just happened? I bet you'd feel pretty silly then, wouldn't you? No, I know. The scenes from that hospital are absolutely grotesque. And we can take a look at the Al Jazeera.
These are not armed medics, but disguised Israeli soldiers inside a Palestinian hospital hunting a patient to kill. A targeted assassination
in the West Bank, by the way, where Hamas does not control any of this,
in the occupied West Bank.
That kind of infrastructure.
According to the hospital staff, one of the 3 men killed had been receiving treatment for injuries he suffered during an Israeli army raid 2 months ago.
Killing unarmed people in a bed.
This is a crime that can be added to a series of crimes, violating hospitals and storming medical institutions, assaulting medical teams, and assassinating 3 young men. We want to
How about if what happened didn't happen, and instead a scenario I came up with happened? Checkmate, leftoids. That's pretty much how these arguments go.
Reiterate our appeal to the international institutions that they need to stand by us and take responsibility against these crimes.
A statement by the Jenin Brigades, which includes a number of Palestinian armed resistance groups, said 2 of the 3 men were members of Islamic Jihad and 1 a commander. The 3rd was a commander in Hamas. Hamas said it was a fully fledged war crime and a continuation of crimes against people from Gaza to Jenin. An Israeli army statement said what it called a Hamas terrorist cell hiding inside the hospital had been neutralized. It said Hamas commander Mohammed Jalamneh had been planning an attack inspired by the October the 7th Hamas attacks and had been transferring weapons and ammunition to other fighters. The Israeli army often surround and at times have actually attacked the 3 hospitals in Jenin during their nightly military raids on the city.
Yeah, better just shoot them unarmed people in their beds. Someone said there were maybe some guys.
A civilian medical facility in what seems to have been a targeted assassination, and one the Palestinian authorities are calling yet another contravention of international law. Charles Stafford, Al Jazeera, Ramallah in the occupied West Bank.
Make sure to...
Like, they lie every single time. They lie about everything. No due process or anything, and the only democracy in the Middle East. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what else do we have here? I'm losing steam a little bit. I'm losing steam a little bit. I gotta say, like I said, I had kind of a rough night last night. I want to stay for another 17 minutes to make it past 3 hours. If you can, though, folks, again, please subscribe if you can. If you can.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
There, look at that, M. Gauntlet. Thank you so much, M. Gauntlet, for the 5 gifted subs. Very, very kind of you. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And now only 5 measly subs to go. Five measly subs to go. Let's look at this. Or hold on, let me see what else we have to look at here.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Dino Dance.
Hey, Antonia. Thanks for 26 months tier 1. I very much appreciate that. You know what? I think this might be a good example of, like, let's look at, like, that's some of the appetite that people have for escalating this into absolute disaster. I think that could be a good and kind of an interesting way. To end this, to end the stream today. Or what is it? Do I look at CNBC or this Bloomberg thing? Here's Bloomberg TV. How to respond to the Iranian threat opinion from Bloomberg. Hopefully those 5 subs cleared out the blockages. I think so. I think the pipes are getting unblocked.
I'm worried, let's be honest, because what we're doing is not working. And we see in the world of business the concerns we have about Houthis attacking shipping in the Red Sea, driving prices of oil and goods. We see terrorist attacks against Israel. We see most recently, Tom, as you allude to, the attack that killed 3 brave American servicemen and women in Jordan. So we are not deterring Iran. What the article I wrote for Bloomberg Opinion does is sketch out a campaign that we need to undertake.
We don't know that they were brave.
That I am hopeful will ultimately deter Iran.
Paul wants to get into that, but Jim, you've been so far out front
on a game theory basis, and folks, a cliche is expect the unexpected.
One shattered
But you
MR raid, hell
stated
yeah.
that in our complexity of military force, technology, and politics, that it's the unexpected, like mixing up drones coming in or out of a base in Jordan. It's the unexpected that will kill us, that will harm us, that will put us at risk. How do we defend against the next unexpected?
For starters, Tom, we look back at history and
These are the-
identify
these
those
are the people that
moments,
determine these kinds of
hinge
policies.
moments in the case we're discussing of military operations, the Battle of Agincourt, where English longbowmen slaughter French knights in their supposedly impervious armor. Pearl Harbor, where we are stunned by a Japanese surprise attack. We look at those hinge moments when airplanes, radar, came on the scene and changed everything. We are in that moment now, and we're talking about the Middle East, but I would argue equally so what's happening on the battlefields of Ukraine. So A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court is a book about innovation and leading through these kind of pivot moments. We are definitely in one where technology and security are coming together.
Admiral, I want to go right to your Bloomberg opinion piece yesterday because it had such an impact. I'm sure it had quite the impact in Washington, at the Pentagon, at the White House. But basically, the summary is, from your opinion piece, a deadly drone attack that cost American lives requires a swift, precise, and meaningful military response. Could you summarize what type of response you think this attack warrants?
It's kind of the Goldilocks phenomena, Paul. In other words, we've been trying to curtail this by pinprick attacks, by tit for tat, small beer. At the other end of that spectrum is whistling jets overhead Tehran. I don't think we're there yet. We need to be in the middle, that Goldilocks place. And here's what it includes: cyber attacks, better intelligence collection, going after Iranian assets, but not inside Iran.
And all this is not going to escalate?
Still go after the Iranian Revolutionary Guard at sea, ashore. They are
That's not going to escalate? This is the Goldilocks zone of non-escalation. Notice how cutting off Israel from committing genocide is not an option.
Shia who have killed our American soldiers. We need to go after Iran directly, but not yet inside Iran. That's the essence of the article.
And Admiral, I know you said even suggesting perhaps a 5 to 8 day concerted campaign. What would that campaign entail in your estimation?
I think we'd bring a second U.S. aircraft carrier back into the region. Recall we had two there right after October 7th. We pulled one out.
This is Bloomberg. Hack all the things.
So maritime assets. We have a lot of air.
This is like the centrist moderate
in the Gulf, in Qatar,
stance.
and the base near Doha, Al Udeid. We would bring more refueling aircraft, more fighter jets, bring our allies into this, and then it would be, I'd say,
war in the Middle East, famous for being limited on well-defined deadlines.
Iranian targets, again, outside Iran at this point. And then finally, Paul, we would be preparing the battle plan if we have to go.
He hasn't explained how any of these Goldilocks strikes would be deterring further attacks and not inflaming things more.
Truly strong U.S. response.
Coming to you commercial free in this hour on YouTube, Bloomberg Podcast. It is Bloomberg Surveillance. We welcome all of you across the nation. On
This guy looks trustworthy.
As well. With us, James Stavridis, his public service with the Navy, and of course his work in Brussels with NATO as well. James Stavridis, I want to go to Brett Crozier, a captain in your magnificent book. Folks, I can't say enough about To Risk It All, 9 conflicts in the crucible of our leadership in the Navy. Yes, it has admirals in it, but as Stavridis does, there's a lieutenant commander in there as well, and a cook, third class. I love that. Let's go to Brett Crozier, and this is the reality of his career ended with COVID and the uproar and the Theodore Roosevelt. But tell us about Brett Crozier as a kind of preparation, James Stavridis, that we need if we're going to take on Iran.
Brett Crozier, fighter pilot, also a superb targeteer. He worked for me as a captain selecting the targets we struck in Libya. So a consummate combat pilot and operator, also a terrific leader. He unfortunately, and with bad luck, became the captain of an aircraft carrier at the very beginning of COVID. He sacrificed his career to protect his
He's met his career ended before all this war, and he's writing fanfic.
And if you read the story of Brett Crozier into Risk It All, you'll see how
I think you should go back and you should be on the front lines of this.
Take care of our people while we conduct these kind of combat operations.
Are we too extended? Ian Bremmer in Eurasia Group, Admiral, had a spectacular chart on the dispersion, including reservists from Georgia, across all of the Middle East. It's almost as if the Bremer worry in his top risk came due. Are we too naive in our unprotected dispersion across a broader Eastern Mediterranean?
No, I think this brings us back to where we started this conversation, Tom.
Oh, yeah.
Just to say, if we recognize the technology of the moment and are aware of it, we can do a better job defending ourselves. Point one. Point two, a lot of this can be done from the sea. Our carriers are invulnerable, essentially. And point three, we can fuse together the work with our allies, partners, and friends in the region. So we're not alone.
Our rapidly dwindling list, like all those allies that helped with the Yemen situation. All those allies who jumped in to come to your aid.
Admiral, again, I'm just going to reference your opinion piece from yesterday. And again, you can read it on the Bloomberg terminal. Certainly, and you can go to bloombergopinion.com/opinion.
Yeah, the carriers are invulnerable. Not that one War Games proved they had to rig the rules on to win.
Do you believe, Admiral, that some of the steps and policies,
the coalition of the willing, exactly,
in your opinion piece, does that have a welcome reception with this administration, with Congress?
I think it will. And as usual with any issue in today's America, there'll be plenty of folks who are advocating very radical, go downtown Tehran tonight kind of strikes. I think that's premature. We might get there. Let's hope not.
Yeah, it would be a total disaster, and it's premature, but we still should probably think about it, though.
Pull out of the Middle East. Let all of that just fall apart. I think what I've laid out is something in the middle that makes sense, that will avoid a wide regional war, but will cause Iran to back down.
Okay, Admiral, we're running out of time here in a bit.
They should make a movie about the Millennium Challenge.
Everybody's listening.
Maybe more Americans can be less gung-ho about this idea.
Actually, probably can talk about this and calm down the Let's Bomb Tehran crew. And that's the senator from Rhode Island, Jack Reed. How important is Jack Reed in this debate?
God, this shit is so boring.
Well, I love Jack Reed because, first of all,
how do
he's
people
a man
watch
of
this?
Normal height, about 5 feet 5 inches tall, my height. Number two, he's a military guy. He's a veteran. He went to West Point. I'll forgive him.
Striking Tehran would totally fuck us all, but let's not rule it out.
At the top of the list, Tom, you're absolutely correct in his strategic vision, his understanding of the balance we need to strike here. And I think the more we listen to the Jack Reeds of the Congress, the better our chances are of steering through these rough waters.
Okay. Okay.
We do start with the breaking news. Here's President Biden speaking.
When is this? 1 hour ago. Biden says he's decided how to respond to the attack. Oh, good. Let's see what rambling bullshit this is going to be.
We do start with the breaking news. Here's President Biden speaking to reporters at the White House just moments ago.
Yes. I do hold them responsible in the sense that they're supplying the weapons to the people who did it. We'll have that discussion.
You're supplying weapons to Israel.
This could be one of the most consequential decisions.
He's decided,
of Joe
folks.
Biden's presidency so far. I want to go straight to our
Dark Brandon. Shout out to all the cool bros that helped, that did the unironic Dark Brandon thing and helped turn that into an actual campaign thing. Shout out to all those folks.
You were one of the reporters there talking to the president, asking him questions. What else did he say?
Yeah, they're supplying the weapons, so it's almost like they're accountable. When you're supplying the weapons that are engaged, that are part of these attacks, it's almost like you're culpable for the response.
Dead, and he told me just a short while ago that he has in fact made that decision. Of course, officials say that the president really has been balancing two things when trying to find a way to respond, and that includes crafting a forceful response that would deter future attacks, but also preventing a wider regional conflict from erupting. That is something that the president has made clear in his conversations as he is trying to figure out the way to respond. Now, the White House has yet to telegraph how and when the president and the United States will respond to these attacks. You have heard Secretary of State Antony Blinken saying that he expects it could be multi-leveled, it could go through phases and take quite a period of time.
Anything that's not ending the genocide is going to escalate, and it's going to lead to more attacks.
Would be more powerful than the retaliatory strikes the U.S. has been taking in the past against those Iranian-backed groups in Syria.
There's no de-escalatory strategy here. None. This is Fantasyland delusion.
Being conducted. That is something I asked the president whether this time will be different, and he said we'll see. Now, some of the options available to the president is potentially striking those groups again in Iraq and Syria, trying to target leadership, also potentially launching an offensive cyber attack. But one thing that officials have suggested is that it's unlikely the president will strike directly in Iran, which is something some of his Republican lawmakers up on Capitol Hill have been calling for. But it's clear that the president is facing a very fraught and challenging decision as he's trying to have this U.S. show of force while also preventing a wider conflict from erupting in the region.
Arlette, such important reporting and really the key question and the answer you got.
There's no strategy here. There's no de-escalation strategy.
Thank you so much for
that. That involves bombing.
CNN's Nick Robertson, who is in the region. He's in Tel Aviv. Nick, you have covered the Middle East for many years. Can you just put in context what is happening, what is about to happen? Of course, we're not just talking about where you are, Israel versus Hamas, but this broader situation and the potential for it to get even broader if and when the U.S. responds?
Well, Iran is backing so many different proxies in the region, and depending on how the United States strikes, and definitely there is pressure from many places.
Is the U.S. arming any proxies in Syria and Iraq, you think?
That the language that Iran will really understand best is a strong, robust military response. Iran's proxies are in Lebanon, they are in Syria, they are in Iraq, they are in Yemen, and they've all been militarily active, and they've all been militarily active against the United States and its allies, Israel included, in the region. And I think the stakes are incredibly high. Whatever option the president goes for, absolutely there will be a response, whether it comes direct back from the
This is the analysis that we love. We don't know any information, but let's just say a bunch of speculation bullshit.
Into Iraq, and a day later into Pakistan as well. They've shown that they're willing to flex their muscles, or whether the response comes from those proxies that are even more powerful in Iraq at the moment, those Iran-backed proxies in Iraq that are very powerful inside Iraq, are pressuring the government in Iraq to throw U.S. forces out of there. This is, I would say, whatever the president does, it is the beginning, it won't be the end, and it is, in essence, an escalation of a sequence of tit for tat.
Yeah, of course it's an escalation.
Yeah, I want you to listen, and our viewers to listen to how the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken assessed the situation.
This is an incredibly volatile time.
This is amazing too, this statement.
I would argue that we've not seen a situation as dangerous as the one we're facing now across the region.
And whose fault is that? You're the Secretary of State. You fucked up. You and Brandon fucked up. This is your fault.
As any Secretary of State does, he really chooses his words quite carefully. He wanted to not only send a message to people in the region, maybe even people back.
I suck at my job in a truly historic way.
Very, very strong, direct statement from Antony Blinken.
again, it's something that's shared in this region here as well, that everything is slowly escalating. The anger in the region about what people see happening in Gaza.
Is something going to happen? I guess because the breaking news is that Biden has said that he has decided on what the response is going to be.
Hezbollah and the IDF on that border.
Who knows if it's even true? He might have been thinking about like whether he might have thought he was getting asked about like what he had for breakfast or something.
Unannounced,
Doesn't even know what the hell's going on.
Claimed strikes into Syria. The potential for a very big escalation, it really exists, and it would come down to a misinterpretation or an overstep by any one of Iran's proxies.
Nick, thank you so much.
He thought the reporter was asking whether he wanted a Oreo Blizzard. Yes. He doesn't know what the hell's going on.
You give us your reporting, but also your historical context. Thank you, Nick. I want to bring in my great panel to talk about all of these challenges that President Biden is facing in the Middle East and elsewhere.
I would take an Oreo Blizzard right now as well. That'd be delicious.
From the Associated Press and Aaron Blake from the Washington Post. I've been saying this morning, I've been sort of tweaking the famous Donald Rumsfeld line that you go to an election with the world that you have when you're president, not the world that you want.
Right.
And this is not the world that any president wants. But
When I was a lifeguard, Jack, there's this mean Ayatollah.
Without question. And look, I think, as you said, this is going to be a decision that is remembered without a doubt. I mean, look, if you look at the sort of the arc of Joe Biden's policy view.
Yeah, what historical context did that guy just provide? I think there was some gaps in that historical context that we just heard about.
Skeptical about the U.S. involvement in Iraq and the Middle East, much more so than a few of his predecessors, actually. But look, now this is what he has dealt. So he said, I don't think we need a wider war.
But it's not what he's been dealt, though, because he's supporting the genocide in Gaza.
What is about
That's his decision. That's not just being dealt a certain hand.
That really touched off John Kirby, who said he's not doing this because of polling. I think that's likely true because the political fallout of this is very dangerous for President Biden among his Democratic coalition.
Why are they making this like the decision from LeBron? Because they have to fit a day's worth of programming into this and sell like fucking arthritis medicine to baby boomers. That's why. Because they have to stay on the air talking about this stuff at all times, even when they have no information, and they're just verbally jacking off.
Which is really fraying in some regards to what's happened in the Middle East. So this is why the power of incumbency is strong and beneficial in some respects. In other respects, it's not.
Let's dig into the pressure points that he is feeling, not just politically, but
it's
also
news-gooning.
Obviously militarily. And you're right, John Kirby was very intent on saying that we're going to focus on what's important geopolitically and not what's happening here in his reelection. Mikey Sherrill, she's a Democrat from New Jersey. She was a Navy helicopter pilot. She graduated from Annapolis. Listen to what she said on CNN this morning.
You know, sure, it feels good. It feels macho to say that we are going to destroy our enemies. But at this time, what the United States often does best is not simply go in half-cocked. What we are trying to do here is to prevent a full-scale war. We are trying to deter this aggression.
Right. That's
Deter the aggression without escalating. No problem.
About just the
These are mutually
that
exclusive.
Are on President Biden right now in an election year with this growing conflict in the Middle East. I'm just struck by where all the different political pressure points are coming from, because you do have a very vocal contingent.
The U.S. never makes bad decisions. They always bumble or get thrusted into bad situations. How the bad situation came to be, no one knows. We don't know.
Opponent Donald Trump already
It's out of our hands
as week on Iran, but then you have a growing number of his progressive base who are really upset and protesting him everywhere he goes because of the war in Gaza. And this is what they warn of over and over, that we don't want a broader conflict in the Middle East. And then you have another groups, who would otherwise could be supportive of the president's actions, but they're really worried and increasingly concerned about the unilateral actions that he's taking. He's saying that he needs congressional authorizations for the moves that he's taking. So he has all of these pressure points coming from every which direction, which is why, as our reporters have pointed out several times, this is a really fraught moment for the president right now.
There we go. That's the exciting expert analysis from CNN. I've decided to take my talents to Tehran. Am I being crazy? I don't really see a way that this de-escalates. We're simply going to deter the aggression and de-escalate the situation by bombing. Okay. And then you have the 60% of the country that's wanted a ceasefire for months now, but we're not going to entertain that position. No, those people are all Russian spies, so we're not going to be discussing that possibility.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
TRRS Sankara left FL1 free.
JNKD, thanks for 35 months, tier 1. So close to 36 months. The elite Pearl sub badge, 1 month away. JNKD, thank you for that. 3 measly subs to go, folks. 3 measly subs to go to get to the sub goal. Got what, 203 viewers? Who's going to be the 3 brave heroes or the 1 extremely brave hero to get TRRS to the sub goal today? Only 3 measly subs to go. Good news for China, the pivot to Asia is fully dead and Israel killed it. Yeah, as we were speculating yesterday about the idea of like what this is going to mean for the Taiwan situation. And that's definitely something to keep our eyes on. Oh.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
More communist Alex Jones, please.
Plunge Man, thank you for 28 months, tier 2. I really appreciate that, Plunger Man. Thank you. I'm so tired though. I don't think I have enough energy to do communist Alex Jones right now. I can workshop a version of it though. I think Hamas supporting communist Alex Jones would be good. You know? Folks, I will never condemn Hamas. I promise you this, folks. I will never condemn Hamas. When people escape from a concentration camp that's been completely subsidized by the United States military for generations, when people escape from this concentration camp and commit acts of violence, I condemn. The first people I condemn are the very people that put them in the concentration camp in the first place. I will never condemn the Palestinian resistance. I will never condemn Hamas. Israel, the true terrorist. What is your definition of terrorism, folks? Israel commits more terrorism than any extremist group like Hamas could ever hope to in a lifetime. They bomb civilian infrastructure. They kill women and children with total impunity. There's no greater terrorist organization than the IDF and the United States military. They're imperialists, folks, as Che Guevara told us. They turn men into bloodthirsty beasts. The imperialism, it transforms men into bloodthirsty beasts, as Che Guevara told us.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
They're turning the frogs into bloodthirsty beasts using the powers of imperialism. Eigenbat, thank you for the gifted sub as well. Thank you, Eigenbat, for that. Is that worth one more sub? Is that worth one more? We're one more. We're one away.
You can count on me.
Anon,
You're gonna
thank
have
you.
Good old Rob to talk you through all
Anon,
this.
thank you for the gifted sub. That's very, very kind of you, Anon. Why are you all encouraging this? I don't know. People like it.
Computer to mark up the size of the account.
People like it. That's why you need my Praxis Maxis super drug kit. Ken Sai, thank you for the 100 bits. Okay, we do a hype train now. I guess if anyone else does want to subscribe, you're welcome to, but I gotta get going soon. This is actually making my throat kind of sore. Let's see who else is streaming here. What do we got? What do we got? I can't wait for this hype train to finish. I'm just too tired. And I gotta leave in about 15 minutes to pick up my kid from school. So I made the sub goal. I don't have the mental or physical energy to continue sitting here and seeing through this whole hype train, which of course doesn't stop until the very end of the stream. Thank you once again, Twitch. I either get the hype train in the first 5 minutes or the last 5 minutes. We love you and forgive you for leaving us to push this train alone. I'll be with you in spirit. When you were pushing the hype train yourself, and you saw 2 steps of footprints, one step. I can't remember how the analogy goes. I don't remember. Anyway, I'll be back tomorrow, folks. Okay, I'll be back tomorrow. Plenty more to discuss. Plenty more to get into. Thank you once again for joining the stream today. Thanks for hanging out with me. I really, really appreciate everyone that supports this program. Thank you for watching yet again. Thank you for supporting this show. Please give my regards to our friend Adrienne Vixen. And I'll talk to you later. Congrats on 10K. Thank you, Up the Reds. And thank you, everyone, for helping me get to 10K. I really appreciate it. See you, folks.